Good evening. It is Tuesday, October 23rd. Town Council special meeting. Madam Clerk.
It's 6:05, so we have present Mayor Granatowski, Councilors Atwater, Franco, Heed, Aubry, Parker, absent, Baumgarter, Schmidt, and Zapiri.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you please stand for a salute to the flag? And would Mr. Kohler please lead us in the salute?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a public hearing.
Yes, we do.
2018-383-2.
We're recessing the meeting for the public hearing.
Sure. Recess for the public hearing on 2018-383-2, Groton 2020 Planned Ordinance Amending Ordinance Number 284.
Hereby, notice is given that a public hearing will be held by the Town Council of the Town of Groton, Connecticut on Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018 at 6:00 p.m. in Community Room 1, Town Hall Annex 134, Groton Long Point Road, Groton, Connecticut, on the ordinance introduced at the Town Council meeting held on October 9th, 2018, entitled Ordinance Amending Ordinance Number 284, approved at referendum November 8th, 2016, appropriating $184,500,000 for the design and construction of the Groton 2020 plan and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance said appropriation. Be it ordained to the Town Council of the Town of Groton that Sections 1 of Ordinance 284 shall be amended. And I will read the into the record. Section 1, the sum of $184,500,000 is appropriated for costs related to the design, construction of a new approximately 155,000 square foot consolidated middle school to be situated on town-owned land site known as the former Merritt Farm, PIN number 26080926480E and PIN number 2608091766052E between El Grasso Technical High School and Robert E. Fitch High School, and 2, replacement of existing Carl C. Cutler Middle School at 160 Fishtown Road and existing Westside Middle School at 250 Brandegie Avenue with 2 new pre-K through grade 5 elementary schools, each of approximately 75,000 square feet. The appropriation may be spent for design and construction costs, demolition costs, equipment, furnishings, materials, land or easement acquisitions, necessary utilities, parking and road and sidewalk improvements, off and on school sites, site improvements, portable classrooms, storage, and moving costs, architect's fees, engineering fees, construction manager fees, legal fees, net interest on borrowing, and other financial costs, and other expenses related to the project or its financing. The Town Council or its designee shall approve the final concept for the school project. The Town Council may reduce or modify the project and may delete portions of the project if funds are insufficient to complete the entire project. This ordinance shall become effective only if it has been adopted by a vote of not less than 5 members of the Town Council and by the representative town meeting, and only if approved by voters at referendum in accordance with Section 5.5.1, 5.5.5.1 and 9.13 of the Town Charter, and notice of passage has been published in accordance with the provisions of the Town Charter. This was published in the Day newspaper on October 16th, 2018.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have one person signed up to speak, Craig Kohler. If you could please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you.
My name is Craig Kohler. I live at 263 Brook Street in Groton. I was a member of the School Facilities Initiative Task Force and a member of the Groton 2020 Pact. I'm here tonight to voice my approval for the ordinance modifying Ordinance number 284, which was overwhelmingly approved at referendum on November 8, 2016. And I urge each of you to also support this modification so it can next move to the RTM for their approval, and finally to further referendum. As I see it, this modification is merely semantics. It just changes the wording regarding the construction of the 2 elementary schools from renovate to new to new. And I think this point needs to be stressed. We are not voting on the funding of the school projects again, but merely that the elementary schools will now be new rather than schools renovated to new. This is a result of a more detailed analysis required by the State of Connecticut Office of School Construction Grants and Review to determine which method of construction would be the most cost-effective for both the state and the town. This modification does nothing to the approval of funding for the Groton 2020 plan that was approved at referendum almost 2 years ago. It was originally thought by the task force that renovating to new would result in less cost to the town. However, this further analysis has proven otherwise, so it makes perfect sense to amend the wording of the ordinance so the school building projects can continue as planned, on time, and in the most cost-efficient manner for both the state and town. Please vote in favor of this amended ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kohler. There's no one else signed up. Is there anyone in the seats that would like to come forth and speak? Yes, please come up. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Portia Bordelon, 159 Shenecosset Parkway. Once again, I apologize for showing up with work clothes, but unfortunately to make it, this is how I had to come. So with that being said, I'm in full support of this revised ordinance, and I encourage the town of Groton to follow suit like we did a couple of years ago when we approved this ordinance. With that being said, there are some concerns as to how we got here and concerns about the next step as far as how the wording will be worded for the ordinance on December 11th. As we know, we're up for a new election, and depending on who becomes elected into office, could that affect the funding and how the state is moving in the different directions? The old ordinance that was originally approved a couple of years ago stated old to new. Now we're switching it new to old. Each time we go back to referendum, it does cost taxpayers dollars. So my concern is that should we be a little bit more broad, if possible, in the wording, if in another, I don't know, however long we get back to the table again and the state is not funding at the same level. Also putting in the wording K through 5, which that's our current plan, but if something was to change, would we have to go back to referendum again? Should it be for Groton Public Schooling or schooling buildings? So just a little concerned about how the wording is going to be on the current referendum, making sure that we are putting in exactly what we need to, and maybe not too much where we're limiting ourselves from making any changes to the town, because numbers can change with the state at any time. So I just would hate to see us come back to the table again and have to reword everything over. Like I said, we're up for an election coming up, and we have a lot of changes that could be happening up at the state capitol. And I just think it's fair to the taxpayers of Groton to make sure we get the wording right, considering from the Merit property issues with not all the I's and T's crossed. I understand you guys were not elected officials when all that went through, but who's writing these ordinances, and are we really making sure we're getting the proper guidance to the town so that we're not spending a lot of money? So that's just my thought on it, is really re-looking at that wording and making sure this time we do have it right for any upcoming changes that should come down. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak? Please come up. And again, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Mike Whitney, 112 Deerfield Ridge Drive, Mystic, Connecticut. I'll be very brief. I'm fully in support of the the amendment to the referendum. I think getting new schools for less money is something we should all be behind, and I think it's going to be a wonderful asset for the town as well as the new middle school as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And at this point, we are going to recess the town council special meeting and go, excuse me? Yes, please. Yep.
Just to mention, in terms of the flexibility of the wording, we did look at that. We have an outside bond counsel who also has to approve the language before the bonds are issued. We have to either go with renovate like new or the new. We can't do a flexible version. We have to make clear what the change is going to be. However, having said that, the state originally, before we set it to renovate to new, had not weighed in officially to give approval one way or another. We set that bond language to renovate to new. The state has since said it should be new, and so that's what we have to change the language. But we did look at making it more flexible, but that was a no-go with the attorney. So.
And I believe it's different people that have written this than
Yes.
wrote the original referendum question.
Well, at the time, there was nothing wrong with the original referendum. And actually, I think Judith Blank was still here at the time. You know, Rick, I think it was the same bond counsel. I could be wrong, but there was nothing wrong with it. You have to show what you're going to do, and it changed, and you got to reflect that.
Anything else? Mr. Burt, are you good?
Good.
Okay, so we're going to recess the town council special meeting. And we are now going to the town council committee of the whole. Actually, we can't because it's not 6:30, so we're going to take a break for 15 minutes until it is 6:30 and we can start the next meeting. We're in recess. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the town council committee of the whole. Regular meeting agenda for Tuesday, October 23rd. It is 6:30, and all members of the town council are present. We have with us tonight, this is a joint city-town committee meeting, so Mayor Hedrick, would you like to call your meeting to order?
Thank you. We will call the City Council, Town Council Special Meeting Committee of the Whole to order on the city side. All councilors are present.
Thank you. Calendar and communications. Do we want to save that for later? Can we save that for later, Mr. Burt? Okay, we'll just save that for later on. Approval of minutes. Who normally starts on our side?
So I'll make a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole minutes of October 9th, 2018, and the special meeting minutes of October 10th, 2018. So moved.
Moved by Baumgartner and seconded by Zepari. I forgot, we got to pass the mics. I apologize, Councilor Baumgartner. Zepari. Is there any discussion on the minutes of October 9th and October 10th? The October 10th meeting was the Jabez Smith tour that we had. What page, please?
10. Section 5F. First sentence. Second line, first word.
Should be nuisance. Anything else? And there will, the documents we received from the Jabez Smith Committee people are going to be entered into the minutes. Mr. Burt has them scanned and they will be part of the record as well. So there's no further discussion on the minutes of October 9th and October 10th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? One abstention? 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention. Parker. Do you have minutes you need to do?
Nope, I have no minutes.
Okay, thank you. So we are on to new business, item 5A, 2018-424. And this is for discussion only at this point. Mr. Burt is here, and we have a guest as well. Mr. Mathenall, would you like to come up, please? And this is for discussion purposes only this evening. So just please use the microphone, that way it's captured for the viewing audience, please. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much.
I suppose I should introduce myself. Resident of City of Groton, 67 Tyler Avenue, member of Groton EDC for last 10, 12 years, and also in various capacity in the state level in terms of CT Next and Minority Investment Board and Commission of Equity and Opportunity. So the reason I'm here today, we are looking to seek the town's awareness and support for an initiative that we have gone through with the City of New London as well as the City of Groton in terms of a sister city relationship between the City of Haifa and the City of Kingston, Jamaica. The goal and the ambition that we are having is various prongs. One is to identify various opportunities between Israel in terms of identifying opportunities in tech talents and more in particular with helping us with the Port of New London to create a broader transportation hub that links with our airport and I-95 and create a big, nice logistics hub in New London County. And we are now, the state, as you know, investing quite a lot of money to expand the services and the utilities of the Port of New London, as well as in terms of providing more activities there in terms of green tech and so forth. And we felt the state of Israel through the township of Haifa will help us ingress and actually advance our activities and innovation and entrepreneurship across the board in New London County as well as across Connecticut. Various townships across our state have reached out to Israel, but we felt an approach as a sister city relationship would be more tangible, creating a virtual bridge, if you will, between Israel and Connecticut. And our goal will then be able to expand on culture, economy, education, and so forth. We are ideally looking for tech transfer, cross-pollination of intellectual properties, able to transfer some of the activities that UConn School of Engineering is looking to expand across Europe through Israel. And unfortunately today, the VP for the Global Affairs for UConn wanted to be here, but he got pulled away. So that was something that he was looking to expand with all of you. And separately, we are looking to expand our relationship in a similar fashion with Sister City with Kingston, Jamaica. As you probably know, the Jamaican infrastructure is now expanding rapidly with significant investments from China. China has invested about $70 billion to create the logistics hub in Kingston. It's called Jamaican Logistics Hub. And at the same time, China has invested about $50 billion and growing in expanding the Panama Canal to create an access for Panama X ships to come through them. So we are looking at the opportunity of tying up with JLH High, so whereby Port of New London and Port of Kingston would have a relationship for transshipment of goods to go into inner Americas. So navigating into the Port of New London's deep waters to be able to use that as a huge transportation hub. So commingled with all of that, we're looking at a Port of Haifa and Israel to give us technology based on port management, ship management, logistics management, warehouse management, the kind of things that Amazon excels in that we could facilitate across New London, across New England area. So this was why we decided on those two relationships. Being on the board of CT Next, I am looking for further opportunities for our region to diversify from just defense relation into all kinds of other activities in Korea, so we can have jobs not dependent on defense alone, but in other tech-related or high-tech related, creating high-skilled jobs. So this is where the purpose was. So we had presented to Congressman Courtney and also Representative Murphy is also equally aware and interested in us going forward. However, for the sake of protocol, we need the approval of the town council to say yes to go forward. We have the interest of the city of Groton. We have the acknowledgement on, as well as this keen interest from New London to go forward, but we need the third leg of the bench to approve for Courtney to write to the ambassadors of Israel and Jamaica.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to present before I open it up for discussion?
No.
Councilor Heed.
How it's been being done now?
It's not been done currently. Currently, what's been going on across the state of Connecticut is sporadic individual outreaches to incubators I assume you're talking about Israel. Incubators in Israel, one-on-one with building owners, perhaps, but not on a township level. West Hartford is looking to expand in a similar fashion, sister city with other parts of Europe. Since our discussion, they decided to give us the outreach to Israel, whereas they're going to go to Switzerland and Germany and a few other countries in Europe.
Sure. So what I mean is, like, right now a company runs the Port of New London. How would this be different than just having the company run it?
Oh.
Other companies be in charge?
So we are not looking at it from being in charge. That is something the Port of New London, the City of New London, and the CPA will have to decide upon and award that. What we are providing is creating a virtual relationship, a virtual bridge, if you will, where we can expand all kinds of tie-ups to bring in captive markets and capital investments into this region from Israeli investors and technologists.
Yes, please. Councilor Aubry.
Thank you. Would this be, I understand the technology, well, I don't understand the technology side of it, but I get what you're saying about it, but doesn't something like this begin with a relationship between people involved in the fact that you travel to their country, they travel to your country, or is this strictly mechanics?
It's basically protocol. It's mechanics. It's creating a contract saying, we want to work with you in terms of exchanging technology. We want to work with you in year 2 on investing with you. We want to work year 3 with you on maybe expanding opportunities broader across the region. So it is a kind of project plan that we will establish across the year based on what we are looking to do in time to come, both with Kingston and both with Haifa as well. So some of you may already know we are looking to establish a maritime institute in Groton, New London area. We already made the application to the EDA for some funding, and at some point CT Next will also explore subsidizing that institute in Groton, New London area. But we need to have people running it who's got the wherewithal on running something like that. And the folks in Haifa have been doing it 1,000 years. So that will be part of the mechanics that we are looking to put into place. I don't know if all of you had received a copy of how Chicago and Mexico City signed the sister city relationship. It was a very basic vanilla page that was written in the beginning. And as the relationship gets better understood, the opportunities better absorbed and identified, then we can go back to the table and write those things down. But it is like creating a bridge. The first time you've got to start with the skeleton of it, and then you start filling in the meat, so to speak.
So what is the role of Groton, London?
So our goal is ultimately looking at Israel and Kingston or Jamaica would be to try and establish a relationship so that we can draw their expertise on the fronts that they excel in. We don't have that exposure. We don't have that expertise. We have managed the port indirectly through a Canadian company that used to run our New London port. We need to be able to expand on that expertise in a far much more capable way that will bring in avenues of revenue as well as avenues of new job skills. So Haifa, or the Port of Haifa, has been doing it 1,000 years. We are hoping to learn from them how to best manage ports, how to best manage ship management, how to manage the logistics aspects of things. These are, in my opinion, a lot of the unknowns that our region have never been exposed to, that we could now learn from somebody who's been doing it for a long time. So in terms of Kingston, we are looking at the value proposition of them drop shipping in New London, a lot of the goods that are meant to go to the East Coast. Port of New York is already bursting at the seams. They desperately need a secondary site to drop ship. God forbid, if something happens to that port, the entire East Coast will be shut down. So we are building up towards that capability in 3 or 5 years' time.
Be done on the outside of the bridge?
To some extent, I would foresee once the contract has been signed, the year afterwards, we may probably create a sister city committee that comprises of the city and the town and New London to look at various opportunities that we have. That will be part of the EDC of all 3 municipalities to explore ideas in terms of either creating entrepreneurship or creating opportunities for seed investments or creating opportunities for business relocations and so forth.
What role would the University of Connecticut system play in developing this initiative?
So they are extraordinarily keen. They're going next month to Haifa. They want to be the bearer of the invitation to partner. University of Connecticut has a relationship with Technion in Haifa. Technion is the grandfather of MIT in the world. They started during the Ottoman Empire, and they are known for all kinds of life science, cyber technology, and variety of skill sets. And one of the elements that they are looking for in UConn is the value proposition of the intellectual properties that we have in the life science realm, that they could collaborate R&D as well as to sell it.
Councilman Shepard.
Yes, hi. How is the impact for job creation with this venture as far as for the local folks? It seems like a lot of stuff coming in, but what is that in relation to our economy as far as growth?
So we are looking at it from multiple folds. We are looking at it from high-tech jobs. We are looking for maritime jobs. We are looking at it from cybersecurity jobs. We are looking at it from naval jobs. We are also looking at participation of Israeli technologies in our defense sector. As you know, Israel is the single most key partner for the entire United States for the defense sector. And the United States export controls have given certain amount of leverage to the Israeli counterpart in terms of integrating a lot of the Israeli technology today into a lot of our defense sector work. So going forward in 2019, Connecticut will be one of the biggest recipients of the defense budget. It will be the 4th largest recipient. California, Texas, Virginia, and then comes Connecticut. So in our little state, in the size that we are in, we will have the highest density of defense contract. So with the partnership of Israel, we are looking at it from various folds of relationship that will be using this bridge between Groton and New London to access the markets in Hartford and the whole realm around Sikorsky, Sunstrand, Hamilton, Sunstrand, and so forth. So we are looking at aerospace, we are looking at submarine, we are looking at naval, we are looking at maritime, we are looking at helicopters, which all of that the Israelis excel in the world. In addition to something a little bit close to our heart, in addition to submarine, would be the green technology that we are looking to grow. Wind is one. If anybody can make drinking water out in the desert, they know it best.
Another potential advantage that we have here is we already have a hub. We just don't know what we're going to do with that hub. And let me define the hub. Between the town of Groton, the city of Groton, and the city of New London, we have a deep water port. We also have rail service between Boston and New York. We have a major thoroughfare between Boston and New York. And we also have an airport. And if you look at those things, we are positioned to be a hub for something. This region has not yet decided or defined what we want to be. Technology could be part of it. The shipping could be part of it, and we could supply. They could come in, and this port, the Deepwater Port of New London, could supply the whole Northeast and further west. So that is one potential advantage. There's obviously nothing is guaranteed, but this gives us another opportunity for expansion.
I think what I'm trying to do is we're trying to learn from somebody who's done it for far more years than we have, to know the ways and means of how to execute some of these operations, from everything from creating the airport as a hub, as a contiguous to the port, into the I-95. We are looking at some point bringing in the tribes as well, because they have all that land that could be utilized for warehousing and shipment management. So we are looking at it from a broad angle. How can we create jobs that enables various aspects of diversification in technology and product delivery? Scott is aware. Matter of fact, this week or next week, I'm meeting two of his, both Evan and Andrew, to explore additional ideas on how we can build out the whole Port of New London. Part of the thinking cap that we have on CT Next is how can we create more innovation opportunities. And if the port and the airport are the anchors in this area, how can we create innovation around these efforts, which is not the purview of CPA, it's our purview. So I want to try and make sure we can build that for the state in terms of creating more technology for air freight and all those kind of stuff. And hopefully I can get CPA to put some money aside for us on that too.
So that was my concern as well, Councilor Schmidt. This is clearly not our area of expertise, and I am not comfortable jumping in unless we hear from Deputy Secretary Bates and get the input of the Port Authority and see what they view as our role. I'm sure they've been working on this a lot longer than we have, and I think we need to perhaps reach out to Chairman Bates, Deputy Secretary Bates, and have him come out maybe and speak to us about what their vision is and what they've already done so that we're not duplicating anything and so that we certainly don't get in their way. Because if they have bigger plans and they are further along, we don't want to be an obstacle for them. So I appreciate you coming out this evening. This is great to hear. And I would like us to, before we would make any decision, to go forward and hear from the Port Authority as well. Councilor Saperi, can you wait until you get the mic, please? Thank you.
I think from the point of view of opening dialogue and opening channels of communication, you don't know where it's going to go. If we go ahead with something like this, we would be not expending the resources of the community, yet we would open the door for communication with others who might be making investments in that community. And I think that makes it very worthwhile doing. If we want to consult with Mr. Bates or anyone else, I have no objection to that, but I don't think we should let this lie. I don't think we should just push this aside and say we don't want to do it. I think it has potential. It doesn't have any specific, there are no specific plans of what it's going to produce. But it would give us a look at the resources we have. Any problems with redundancy as long as we're not spending taxpayers' money on it. This doesn't sound like it's going to cost us a penny. Right. So I'm all for it. I really would like to see us develop this. Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other councilors who wish to speak? Councilor Heath and Sheffield?
In the first line, it just says offer a soft landing pad for cultural exchanges. What kinds of cultural exchanges?
I was thinking about food to begin with.
Food. And Greece.
We will. So the idea here is on a broad, so as you know, Connecticut's economy is tied to export. And we want to try and mitigate some of the issues that may or may not help us independently expanding our GDP. So the thought process is, and this is happening from West Hartford to Stamford, everybody is reaching out to various cities and towns around the world to create linkages. The idea here is let us talk, come and buy from us, maybe we can buy from you. We want to have this direct link with those counterparts in those countries that we are selling. So Italy is one place. I'm thinking of South Korea as well, and a variety of others. So culturally speaking, we can export McDonald's over there. They can export something back here.
Just wanted to mention that Mayor Passero was here, but he had to leave, so he was here to support Mr. Mathenall.
Councilor Sheffield, did you have a? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. I know you've been working on this for a long time, Judge. Had many conversations. You brought this to the EDC at one time. He's kept working on it. I think as long as we continue in this format, I think it would be wonderful because it is a joint opportunity. I think one of the biggest things that we would probably have to start looking at as we go forward would be the infrastructure. Because unless we have a good way to get it on the rails, on the road, in an airplane, it would be hard to be successful, I would think. So I think that that's probably something that the town, the cities, and so forth are really going to be looking at. as we learn more. But I think it'd be wonderful to investigate it more as long as it was in this format.
Absolutely. I think going forward, so we're calling it GROW NL, Grow New London County, if you will, but Groton New London. The idea here is collectively we have a lot to go forward with across the world. Collectively we have much to gain in terms of, my only concern is the defense work will end 25 years from now. Not everybody wants to be in the defense industry. What kind of jobs can we create for those who are going to come out of college? Not everybody wants to work for EB or supply chain. A lot of people are going into coding and technology related jobs. So ultimately, where does coding schools and so forth go into? They go into digital media, they go into life science, they go into high tech, they go into databases, they go into security. And we have a potential locus for creating those kind of jobs. And I'm looking at it from 5-10 years down the road in stages. So the port on top of that is another value proposition. The airport is another value proposition. We've got a lot of good anchors here, but we lack the catalyst in terms of expertise on how to ignite some of these opportunities that we have. And I'm not saying the state itself doesn't have it. You all know better than I. Once you cross that river, there's a different level of expertise, and it doesn't generally come around here. So what I'm looking for with this new relationship, and we'll create more sister cities, ultimately we can have a more vibrant economy here that in some ways independent of what happens in Western Connecticut. So that is the goal. Different jobs, different skills set, better colleges, and also, if you read the Commission on Fiscal, I forgot the full name, they gave the suggestion that we should have a STEM college as part of their recommendation. And I cannot think of a better place to have a STEM college than Eastern Connecticut. And if we can get the expertise of UConn, Technion, and Ben Gurion University to help us with the STEM program, maybe at UConn Avery Point or with Mitchell or somewhere, or maybe even something independent as a satellite. We have the capability and the resources here to create a STEM college that the Commission was recommending.
Thank you. Do you have anything else, Mr. Mayor? No. Okay, if there are no other questions from the council, thank you, Mr. Mathenall, for coming out this evening. And we will keep this on our agenda, and we'll decide how we're going to move forward as a town council, and the mayor can also do the same for the city council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all of you for your time. Thank you.
So we are.
I must say, I'm so pleased to see all of you sitting like this.
We are too. We're very happy.
I'm so pleased. Thank you.
Very happy. Thank you, George. So we are on to 5B, 2018-425, tax increment financing, TIF city policy acceptance. Councilor Baumgartner?
The issue at hand. The town and city of Groton currently have an initiative underway to create a tax increment financing TIF program. The mayor of the city of Groton will discuss the city TIF policy at today's joint city and town COW meeting. To keep our TIF programs consistent, the town of Groton should accept, not adopt, as we already have a TIF policy, the city of Groton's TIF policy. So I make a motion to recommend a resolution accepting the city of Groton's tax increment financing policy as written. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Baumgartner and seconded by Heed. We have Mr. Reiner with us this evening to discuss.
Okay, here we go. My planner, Dennis Godair, is sick today, so he could not be here tonight. But if you look at the TIF policy that the city has, it mimics the TIF policy that the town had, and we use Camoin, who is the same group that wrote the TIF policy for the town. We use them to write the TIF policy for the city. The big difference between the city and town policy is that because the city is its own municipal entity and has taxing authority, there is if you go on page 3, you'll see where it talks about city-only master plans and things like that. So normally, we would work together, the city and town, and we would do a master plan that the city would approve and then the town would approve. The difference, one difference in this policy is it allows the city, should they decide to do a city-only master plan that would be approved by the city, but the only taxing would come from the city side, not from the town side. Does that make sense? So I cannot, at this point, I cannot imagine a time when the city would say, we're going to go it alone and we're going to do our own TIF master plan here. But we wrote it in here to allow for that latitude for the future, because you don't know what the future is going to bring. And that's why Camoin recommended that we get the town council's acceptance, not approval. My council, the city council, has already approved this tax increment financing policy. And then, like I said, any master plans that come out of the city would be approved by the city and by the town. So by the city council and by the town council, unless it was a city-only plan. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's what I bring before you.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate the tremendous amount of time and effort that has gone into putting this together, but I only got this last night in the mail, and I think I'd like a little more time to be able to actually digest what is a very complicated issue and then make a decision.
Sure, but I think you guys aren't going into are you going into a council meeting right for this?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, typically for the city, we'll have our committee of the whole, and then there'll be maybe a week or so difference so that things that are brought up during the committee of the whole, so you can discuss, debate, deliberate, whatever you want to do, and then the actual passing of the ordinance or of the resolution is during a council meeting. But if you're doing this back to back, then I can understand your concern, and actually I'll step back.
We are going into a council meeting, but we're not going to be voting on that tonight. So there will be time to digest and to talk to Mr. Reiner and Mr. Byrd if you so choose.
Yeah, the intent for bringing this to you was information and to just let you know what it is and then get it ready for you. There's never an intent to bring it to you short notice or to force this through. We want to give you the amount of time. We want to give the town council the amount of time that they need to process the information so that you can make a good decision.
Yes, I don't think Councilor Schmidt intended to imply that it was any rush job. It was just that the packets came a little late because of mail situation. Does anyone have? Well, this is your baby, so do any of your councilors want to go first?
Council, do you have any questions or comments on this? Okay, Mayor.
Okay. Any of the town councilors have questions? Councilor Zepari.
I would just like to comment, it concerns me that the city of Groton would contemplate having a separate TIF program from that of the town. Admittedly, we're talking about having a joint program with a caveat that at any time the city could do its own thing. And the problem that I see with that, it creates an environment, potential environment for competition. We want to have more of a unified, I would think it would be more advantageous to have a unified approach to develop the whole town and to bring in what is good for the city is good for the town. And what is good for the town is good for the people in the city also. And I think we ought to come to that conclusion and move ahead in such a way that we will continue working together rather than set up a caveat that can create competition between the two communities.
Councilor Aubry, can you pass the mic over to her, please? Thank you. That's our Councilor Depot.
I think that if anything, we should learn from our own error that we made trying to write something and we've had to go back and make corrections. And I think all this is a matter of having it there so that if it's ever needed, it's there. But if it's obvious to me that the city and town want to work together on this. And I'm sure it's going to go forward that way, and I don't think this was intended except for a very good way for it to be written. So that if something was to happen, they don't have to be like us and go back to the beginning and start again. So I think this is absolutely fine, and I don't think it was meant that way at all. And I look forward to this also working together. And also, I think that John has educated us quite a bit on this, so it's not like we're right at the beginning of this learning curve. We've talked about it, and I don't remember all of it, but we're into it a little bit. So that's my view.
Thank you. Mr. Reiner, did you want to add anything?
John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development. Just want to thank the mayor, the council, and his staff for working with us. I agree with everything the mayor said. And again, to follow up on Councilor Aubry's comments, that provision was put in there as a just in case. And as the mayor said, we can't envision any instance where the city and the town wouldn't work together on a TIF master plan. But there's always just the contingency if there was an area the town wasn't interested in. If the city wanted to, they could. But it would always make sense for us to work together.
Councilor Schmidt?
Well, in what I've read of this, it sounds as though the TIF will last for a period of, say, up to 30 or 50 years is the limit. But it would mean that there would be no increase in taxes to the town or the city for that 30-year period. Everything would go back into another source of TIF tax fund, so that we would not actually realize any additional income to cover any of our expenses.
Mr. Reiner?
That's what I want to read it more.
Sure. So one, the city's TIF policy mirrors in just about every single way, except from what the mayor had said, the town's TIF policy. Once a TIF district goes into place, the town council and the city council, with their respective tax rates, get to negotiate and set how much of the increase in tax goes towards the general fund and how much goes towards the TIF fund. So there will, if you set it at a 50% rate, for example, that 50% goes to the general fund and 50% of the growth goes to the TIF fund, you start establishing funds in that TIF account, and half of the growth would still go into the general fund. So there still will be a realization of tax benefits from the area.
Well, I may be reading it incorrectly, but it's saying here, under the state statutes or the state laws, that everything has to go into a TIF fund. It cannot go into the general fund. There's no way that the funding can come into the general fund.
Okay. So in the TIF law, you can divert, per state law, up to 100% of that revenue to the TIF area, but it's the councils that get to decide that with each individual TIF, with each development, so developer A, developer B, developer C, and as they continue, you get to set what that amount is. Sometimes the language, when you start getting into the percentages of each of these, it's something I'm happy to have an offline conversation with you and kind of go through the policy a little bit to straighten some of those things out. And even with all of that said, if in that hypothetical example where 50% of the revenue is going to the general fund and 50% is going to the TIF fund, if all of the commitments that the town and or the city has made, all the TIF commitments are taken up and there's still revenues in that TIF fund, the town and/or city council can take an action to take the money from that TIF fund and put it back into the general fund. So it's not just locked in that box permanently. You have to take care of all of your commitments, the commitments being any projects you've said that you're going to fund via the capital improvement plan that you might take out of the TIF revenue account, or the credit enhancement agreements, which are the mechanism of how we actually negotiate these deals, which all of those have to be individually approved by the town and/or city council. So outside of those commitments, budgeting, CIP, and the credit enhancement agreements, the CEAs, outside of that, if all of your commitments are met, you can always go and take money out of there.
I don't think so.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like it the way it's written here. It sounds as though everything goes into that fund, and then from that fund, you can enhance projects within the TIF, which after 30 years, they probably need some kind of enhancement anyway. But it wouldn't come back into the general fund, except that I think that we'd be enhancing the town and the city both with this type of fund, making it a more desirable place for people to come in and live and work.
I don't know if she's referencing what's on the bottom of page 29. There's a line there that says dedicated TIF revenues cannot be used for general fund purposes. The portion of incremental revenues not dedicated for TIF purposes are used for general fund expenses. So you're kind of both right. Councilor Baumgartner?
Just to follow up on Councilor Oberry's point, if I'm not mistaken, the town is looking at downtown Groton as well as 184 as potential TIF districts, and I know the economic development teams for both the town and city have been working collaboratively on that. But in terms of getting into the nuts and bolts of the TIF districts, we're taking the increment in gained revenue and putting it towards infrastructural improvements. And if you look at those targeted areas, they're really areas that, in my belief, and I'm sure John would share this belief, that there are areas that are prime for infill development that are conducive to all kinds of residents, whether they're young people or older residents, folks who are looking to live in places that are walkable, bikeable, and more livable. And right now, based on every housing assessment we've seen across the region, within our town, and even at the COG level, they're saying we have a shortage of that kind of housing. So is it true, John, that TIF district could be a solution to remediate some of those issues and actually create a dedicated funding source to enhance infrastructure in those specific areas?
In those TIF districts, yes.
Councilor Heed.
So 2 questions. How long before the TIF policy goes into effect for the town and the city, or the town or the city makes their separate districts? And has the city identified any particular places or gotten any feedback on where they want to put those? And does it make sense, to the town's partner, or is this a situation where the city wants to focus on, say, Thames Street, for example, and the town wants to focus on Groton Town Center?
So
who's answering it? John, I'll let you go first.
Sure. So they're not mutually exclusive. So we can have a number of TIF districts, tax increment financing districts. I expect the first master plan that the town council will see will be the Route 1 downtown master plan. If all goes according to plan, sometime in November, we'll be taking the final draft of that plan to the town council for the council to review. And then if you agree with what we have in there, you'll send it off to the Planning Commission and the other appropriate referrals that we have to do per state law. That's the Route 1 downtown district. At the same time, we've been working with the city on the Thames Street and Five Corners TIF district master plans. just while working on the policy, the city has already been identifying the boundaries of those areas. They've been working with us as well as with Camoin in defining those, working with their Economic Development Commission, working with our tax assessor in the town, looking at those districts, the planning staff, economic development staff. So it's something that is already moving ahead. And just because one's happening doesn't mean the other can't. Because we know in all of Groton there are a number of areas that we want to see targeted for redevelopment.
Mayor Hedrick?
Thank you. As you have noticed, the city has lagged behind the town a little bit with our policy, and we're lagging behind with the TIF master plan. One of the advantages of that is we can get lessons learned from you guys, and we can also put efficiencies in. So there is an advantage to that. We have identified our TIF districts. The TIF district that we currently have is on Thames Street and Bridge Street, coming up and around. It does not include the enterprise zone because you can't do both. You can't do both. You can only take advantage of one or the other. And it also includes Five Corners. This week, actually not this week, last week, Dennis came to me and said that he is reviewing where the Five Corners district ends and the Thames Street district ends, and to determine whether or not he just wants to meld those two together and that we would have one district. So he is looking at that. He will come to me, and then once that happens, then we will bring it to the council. To address a couple things. Your specific question, I'm fairly confident that if you look at that note in your plan, it's in there. We almost, it's almost word for word cut and paste. I recognize your concern. We're trying to follow this. Some of the funds will go to infrastructure projects. Some of the funds may go back to the general fund, and that'll be determined during the master plan. And like I said, our master plan has not come yet. Once we're done, once the city council approves it, it will then come to the town council for approval too. One of the reasons when we discussed having taking the time here to address a city-only project is that there may be an infrastructure project that the city feels is important that the town may say, we don't think that's important. And then therefore, it gives the city the opportunity at a reduced rate, which would be the city tax rate only, to work on that infrastructure. And whereas now there appears to be cohesion between the councils, and this is a kumbaya moment, if you have been following the history of Groton, you will notice it has not always been the same. And the city and the town have not always gotten along. And because history repeats itself, there's going to come a time in the future where there may not be the agreement between the city and the town that we have now. And so we have to plan for all eventualities. It was not a malicious thing. It was part of planning and part of discussing this. We discussed it with Camoin, my team, and John and other members of the town planners were involved in this. So this was not developed in a void or in a vacuum. And so that's why we bring it to you today.
Are there any other comments from councilors, or would staff like to speak? Any? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to recommend a resolution accepting the City of Groton's tax increment financing policy as written. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstaining? 8 in favor, 1 opposed to parry, and 0 abstentions. Thank you. We are on to 5C. Thank you, Mr. Reiner.
Thank you, John.
5C 2018-426 City Town Highway Study Update. This is on page 36 in your packet. And this is for discussion purposes only. Mr. Burt wants to start this one off.
You'll find on page 37 and 38, you'll see about a page and a half update, which really summarizes where we're at this point. But the key things are work completed to date is, and we're talking the city town highway comparative analysis, but the first part is to compare our communities to peer communities before they then compare us to each other. And we've basically gotten through the first part of the peer community benchmarking. So they've finished the benchmarking for the peer communities, looking at staffing and service levels, finance and executive staff interviews, and public works operations review field work. They come and interview people in public works, highway staffing. Staffing and capital spending comparisons indicate the town and city are generally in line with peer communities. They didn't see anything out of whack from the similar communities. Town and city approach to service delivery is reasonable based on respective infrastructure composition and demands. No indication that staffing or crew sizes are inappropriate. Approach to snow and ice removal is comparable. You'll see in there some little differences between the town and city, but nothing significant other than like the paving that we do. The next steps is a follow-up data request, which is ongoing. Completing comparative benchmark of the city and town. That's really the crux of this study. Developing a cost share methodology recommendation that takes comparisons into account, and finalizing the recommendations. This should be pretty fast. They're thinking mid-November. I haven't heard otherwise. Have you, Mayor?
No, sir.
So I think we're going to have the final report, at least the draft version of it, by mid-November. So we're going to have that pretty quick. So this is entering the final stages. And then what we've asked is we will have, and maybe be a little quick though for another joint meeting, it would be nice to have them come and do, a joint update and presentation of the findings. So maybe we can have one early if the two councils were amenable to that. I think in their contract they do one presentation as part of it, so or otherwise you could just visit as we do it at one and the other side could visit. But either way, we should have something soon. So, but it's been going well and everybody's got along and it's been a great process.
Mr. Mayor, did you want to address anything?
No, John's pretty much covered it all, and I think all counselors have the comparative analysis bullets that we have. So it is continuing, and that's all I'll say at this point.
Councilor Atwater?
I noticed the under common denominators, it says that the crew structure and size based on common denominator for snow and ice removal. And then down below it says in-house versus contract approach influenced by how those staff can be most utilized during non-winter months. It would seem to me as though you would hire your crew for a year-round kind of promotion or operation, and then contract out the snow removal, which is only a certain time of the year. To me, this seems like it's done backwards. I don't know if anybody has a comment on that or not. But.
In terms of the town, of course, we keep our people busy all year. There's so many drains to clean out and other things going on throughout the summer. There's never a downtime for them. So it makes sense for the town to have staff year-round for that.
Is that dictated by the snow removal, people you need for snow removal, or is that for the operation of the town?
Operation of the town, really, yeah. But this is just one of the key factors they tend to look at when comparing is how we handle snow removal.
And if you look at the MS4 requirements that are coming out of the state now with stormwater drains and the requirements for sampling and for the cleaning and those kind of things, it is starting to get more and more labor intensive. And both the city and the town are experiencing that. We have, I don't know how many thousands between the two entities, but stormwater drains and cleanouts.
Can I ask a question?
There are other people ahead of you,
No.
unless she wants to yield. Councilor Franco?
No, go right ahead. I'll try to remember.
Write it down, quick.
One of the major differences is the town completes paving in-house while the state contracts. So then on the next page it states that conducting a labor cost calculation estimate based on data gathering, which the city calculates their overhead and their indirect expenses as well as benefit expenses when identifying highway costs, and the town does not. And the city approach reflects true cost of service and should be replicated by the town. My question is, if you're contracting out, how can you compare? What is, I don't know what the purpose of breaking all this out is if one's a contract and one is done in-house.
Well, it's only some of the services that are contracted out, though. I mean, they have lots of staff. They contract out some of it, but what is done by staff is more broken out for the city. So we want to match that and have a full accounting for our staff for the full prices. And then you look at the total cost on top of that. This is just one portion of what you're looking at with staffing costs.
Can I, just my question is, but wasn't majority of this being looked at due to paving? The whole study was regarding who can pave
all
roads?
operations. Paving's just one piece of it. It's all highway operations. There's more to it.
Right. This section here is basically talking about the accounting when we come to budgeting. One of the things, if you remember from the last time we came to the budget, the detail that we try to provide is very detailed because it's always been required. The town has never been required to provide you that same level of detail. Let me be specific. We break out all the OPEB and every single thing, whereas typically all of your OPEB is put in one area, whereas we break it out for this specific thing. And the reason we do that is to justify the amount of money that is necessary and proper to come to the town to get reimbursement. Does that?
Yeah, I fully understand that.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. I just, if part of, I mean, I just hear people complaining about the cost to pave roads and the city does it for one price and the town does it for another, and
there might be
I thought that was
and
where
they
the
will
big
touch on
argument
that
was.
as part of their final report.
Excuse me?
I'm sure they will touch on that as part of their final report.
All right, because I just thought that was the big argument, and I don't know how, it looks like apples and oranges.
And we did tell them early on, we wanted to see, because there's only a couple towns that do their own paving, and we told the consultants we wanted to hear more about that, and, does it make sense for us to continue paving? So I'm hoping to get some thoughts from them on that.
Okay, thank you.
So just to go back to the way the accounting is done, or the way the budget book is presented, the way the town's budget book is presented was at the request of the counselors at the time, and it's been a good probably 10, 15 years. It used to be broken out by function the way the city does it, where you would look at the police department and everything for the police department was together, everything for highway was together. And then the people that were elected at the time said, please break it out. We want to see the total cost for OPEB. We want to see the total cost for insurance. So it was all stripped out of the individual functions. So there is that level of detail, it's just in different places. So it's not that we don't offer that same level of detail. It's there, it's just organized differently. Correct. Councilor Aubrey, did you write down your question?
I forgot it. I started to write it, and then I started to listen, and then it all went away.
All right, we'll go to council, unless there's a city councilor who wanted to. Councilor Heath?
So the town used an epoxy stripe on a 10-year cycle, while the city uses paint, which it says is cheaper. So what's the better way to do stripes on roads? Is it paint or is it epoxy?
Well, I'm sure that'll be part of the final recommendations. But even if you do it manually, you might want to use an epoxy. So, even if you do it with your own staff, you might want to use an epoxy to get longer lasting. And I'm sure that's part of what they'll look at since it's been flagged here.
I have one other thing. Under pavement condition assessment, the condition assessment update is needed. Is that going to be built in? We used to, I think it was like MacTech or something, and it was assigned a number, and then you would pave based on the number. If it was below a certain number or above a certain number,
Right.
then that is what the qualification would be for the paving. Is that what we're going to go to again?
I know that's the intent, but is Gary here yet?
Mr. Schneider is here.
Did you hear that, Gary? Whoops.
Public Works Director Schneider is here. He gave us a very nice tour of the transfer station right before the council meeting this evening. And we peppered him with questions.
What are our plans to do, update our assessment for 2007? This is what they
For the last several years, that was placed in the capital improvement program to have that done. I can include that back into my proposal to the town manager of having that updated study done for the city of Groton, Long Point, and the town of Groton roads. So that can be seen in the capital improvement program. It's about $80,000.
So is that an integral part of this study, though? The teamwork we're trying to do here is to come up with what works well for the whole town. So is that necessary for us to figure this all out?
Don't know, because the current study in 2008 had an aging chart in there, and it aged it out at least 10 to 20 years. So that's what we have been using, at least on the town side, is taking the worst roads and taking that off the list. So we're always working from the worst road list. It would provide an update on the condition of roads. There may be some roads that we haven't touched that have aged quicker than we thought, than the aging report would have done. So it could add some benefit to that. It will then also update, I would think, the costs then going forward, because that I had identified, I would like to see over $1.5 million or $2 million that have to be annually and appropriated to maintain our roads. So it does give that type of guidance too on the dollar value.
Councilor Aubrey, last shot.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the City-Town Highway Study update? Okay, so the Town Council is going to recess the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Mayor?
Let me get to, and the City Council will adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. We're adjourned.
And the Town Council Committee of the Whole is in recess at 7:35.
Mr. Chance to adjourn.
Okay. Excuse me, the Town Council Committee of the Whole is back from recess, and it is 7:47, and we are on item 5D. Councilor Parker, this is on page 39.
To recommend a resolution for the ordinance to amend ordinance number 284. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Parker and seconded by Heed. Mr. Burt, did you want to just brief us on this?
We had, let's see here. We're on the plan ordinance 284, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
we're on item 5D.
Right. So really no change since nothing to add since the public hearing. The wording had changed over time a little bit to add the PIN numbers in to be specific about, there was some confusion about which properties were involved. We want to be real specific about which ones were being authorized. But it's been checked and rechecked by many town staff, as well as the bond council and our regular legal counsel, a couple of them. So it should be good to go.
Councilor Heed.
So just a quick question. What happens now if the state comes back and says, you have to do it a different way?
Well, it's not anticipated because they had never put anything official in writing prior to the last bond referendum. They did since then. And so now we have it in writing that to build new. We've actually got it in writing from them. Could it happen? I suppose. Then we'd have to do another referendum if they switch back again. I don't see any percent chance, that's not out of the realm of possibility, but I cannot see that happening. But we really don't have an option. You can't write it both ways. You have to write it one way or another, so you're really not out anything.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, we will vote on item 2018-383-3 to recommend a resolution for the ordinance to amend ordinance 284. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining, so moved unanimously. We are now on item 5E. Councilor Franco. Page 41.
Yes.
Correct?
Make a motion for the Groton 2020 plan setting referendum to date in form of the question amendment. So moved.
Can you read the motion at the bottom, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Make a motion to recommend a resolution to change the resolution setting the referendum date and form of the question. So moved.
Moved by Franco and seconded by Atwater. Mr. Byrd, anything on this?
Just to add that language, we're redoing it to add the line, that portion that says to provide for the new construction of 2 pre-K through grade 5 elementary schools rather than renovation of schools. Because the earlier language is, the legalese, and it was, you'd have to read, you would have no idea what that meant without reading. There will be explanatory text, that draft is ready. So there will be something with this explaining what's happening. But in case somebody didn't take the time to read that, we wanted something in there to give you a vague, a generic idea, a general idea of what's happening. So that's why we're amending that.
Councilor Franco.
So what's in quotes here is going to be the question on the ballot. Is that what you're stating?
Correct, but there will be explanatory text right before it.
But we added the word new, because that was what I had questioned last time, and you had stated that new could not be put in there, that we were...
No, you had to pick one of the. You had to pick one of the.
I know, but the ballot question didn't say anything about new. That you said that was going to be an explanatory text.
And it's in the ordinance. But we pushed the bond council on it some, and she agreed that this is still appropriate.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Heed.
So just a following question. We have the original referendum passed. So if this referendum, say for the sake of argument, it doesn't pass,
right,
then what happens do we build a renovated school or do we build a new school?
Well, the middle school will continue to be new no matter what. It's the renovating the 2 elementary schools. If this failed and the state, we would have to go to the state first of all to say, can we renovate? So you'd have to get their permission, but I'm assuming we would be able to get that. But it's unknown about how much our reimbursement would be, so it's obviously not an ideal situation, but we could press on and attempt to renovate those schools.
So it could end up costing more if this one fails.
Well, you're limited on how much you can spend. However, what you would end up having to do is trying to cut things out that you may really need. And even that's hard because there's certain requirements of the state. It'd be a very difficult process. So. But the existing vote would stand, though. So.
Thank you.
Councilor, does anyone else want to speak? Or otherwise, we'll go back to Councilor Franco. Councilor Franco.
So just to follow up on that, so just to get the information out there, we would build and spend up to so much, but it's the reimbursement rate from the state would be the issue if we renovated like new.
There might be certain items. For instance, if you're renovating, they might say we're not going to pay for this or that. Like we're not going to pay for. You have a boiler, we're not going to pay for a new boiler because it exists. So they'd start, you'd have to go through that whole design process and hammer things out with the state on what they'd allow and what they wouldn't, and see what you can do. It's just very much an unknown of what would happen through that process.
So we would have a max of what we would spend. But the question being is, what would the reimbursement be?
Correct.
So
what
the
would
town
be amount, and if it's even certain items or even reimbursable. Period.
So the town could actually cost the town more because we might not going to be reimbursed for so much.
As much as we expected. To the construction stage though until we had that figured out, but we'd have some very tough choices to make, I'm sure.
All right, thank you.
There's a limit to what can be spent. What's going to differ is the quality of the building that the kids are going to be in. So they're going to be either going to be in a brand new building or they're going to be in a renovated building, and the cost of that renovation is kind of out of our hands because we don't know what the reimbursement rates will be. Anything else? Okay, so seeing no further discussion, we are on item 2018-384-2 to recommend a resolution to change the resolution setting the referendum date and form of the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. So moved unanimously. Councilor Heed, 5F, please.
Make a motion to recommend a resolution to correct errors in Groton ambulance lease adopted at the October 2nd, 2018 Town Council meeting and giving the Town Manager, John Burt, approval to execute such agreement. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Heed and seconded by Parker. And this was just, there was an error in the sequence of dollar amounts, is that correct? Is there discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor of item 2018-3082, recommending the resolution to correct the errors in the Groton ambulance lease, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention, so moved unanimously. Okay, at this point, we need to recess the cow again and go into our special town council meeting again. So we are out of cow at 7:55. Madam Clerk, are you ready to come back into council?
Yes, but we will have to take a new roll.
Okay. So we are 7:56. We are returning to the Town Council special meeting agenda of Tuesday, October 23rd. Madam Clerk.
Yes, you now have all councilors present.
Councilor Aubry.
Do we need to do the salute to the flag again?
I don't believe we need to do the salute to the flag again.
Okay. You're on,
So, Madam Clerk, for the item 41-2018-383-4.
You have to read the whole
That's what I was just going to ask you. Do you want the whole thing read?
Yes.
Okay.
what do you want, Red?
Let me just get my bearings here and make sure I'm doing the right thing. 2018-3834. 2018-3834. That's the background. So we need the ordinance on page 5, correct?
Yes.
The ordinance beginning on page 5. An ordinance to amend. Nope, you want to go into your council packet. This one?
Hand me what I gotta read.
So you want to start here.
Okay. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 284. Ordinance amending ordinance number 284 approved at referendum November 8, 2016, appropriating $184,500,000 for the design and construction of the Groton 2020 plan and authorizing the issue of bonds to finance said appropriation. Be it ordained by the Town Council of the Town of Groton that Section 1 of Ordinance Number 284 shall be amended to read as followed. This too?
Yes, please.
Holy cow. Okay. Section 1. The sum of $184,500,000, 184,500,000, is appropriated for costs related to design and construction of a new approximately 155,000 square foot consolidated middle school to be situated on the town-owned site known as the former Merritt Farm, PIN 260809264808E and PIN 260809176052E between El Grasso Technical High School and Robert E. Fitch School, and replacement of existing Carl C. Cutler Middle School at 160 Fishtown Road, and the existing West Side Middle School at 250 Brandegie Avenue, with 2 new pre-K through 5 elementary schools, each of approximately 75,000 square feet. The appropriation may be spent for design and construction costs, demolition costs, equipment, furnishings, materials, land or easement acquisitions, necessary utilities, parking, road and sidewalk improvements off and on the school site, site improvements, portable classrooms, storage and moving costs, architectural fees, engineering fees, construction manager fees, legal fees, net interest on borrowing and other financing costs, and other expenses related to the project or its financing. The Town Council or its designees shall approve the final concept for the school project. The Town Council may reduce or modify the project and may delete portions of the project if funds are insufficient to complete the entire project. This ordinance shall become effective only if it has been adopted by a vote of not less than 5 members of the town council and by the representative town meeting, and only if approved by the voters at referendum in accordance with section 5.5.5.1 and 9.13 of the town charter, and notice of passage has been published in accordance with the provisions of the town charter. I recommend, what? I so move.
Second.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to read this as well.
Okay.
I apologize. To adopt.
Motion to adopt the resolution for the ordinance to amend ordinance number 284 and to refer to the RTM 6.5.3.
Now you so move.
I so move.
Second. Moved by Aubrey, seconded by Schmidt. Okay, is there any discussion on 2018-383-4? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. So moved unanimously. 4.2, 2018-384-3, Groton 2020 Plan Setting Referendum Date and Form of the Question. Councilor Atwater.
Do I begin on page 8?
Yes.
Resolved that the resolution previously adopted on October 9, 2018 concerning the form of the question for a referendum vote to be held on December 11, 2018 be amended by removing the second resolved statement and substituting the following. Further resolved that the question to be placed on the town voting machine shall be worded as follows. Shall the ordinance modifying the Groton 2020 plan to provide for the new construction of 2 pre-K through grade 5 elementary schools rather than the renovation of schools, and amending ordinance number 284 approved at referendum November 8, 2016, appropriating $184,500,000 for the design and construction of the Groton 2020 plan, and authorizing the issue of bonds to be financed said appropriation be approved. I so move.
We also need the motion on page 7, Madam Clerk. Could you please read the motion on page
Motion
7? I would do that. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry? Did you change your mind?
Nothing more.
Okay. All right. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of 2018-384-3, setting the referendum date and form the question, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? So moved unanimously. Councilor Schmidt, item 4.3, 2018-308-3, Groton Ambulance Lease Agreement Correction.
Okay, a new lease with Groton Ambulance was approved at the October 2nd, 2018 Town Council meeting. There was a paragraph in error in the lease.
Excuse me?
The next page, the resolution.
No, she's asking something different than that. I think Councilor Schmidt was just giving us some background, but Madam Clerk, did you have something you wanted to say?
I thought that there was a portion for explanatory text, but I didn't see it in my packet.
It was approved at the last meeting. It doesn't need to be read.
Okay, all right.
So Councilor Schmidt, if you would like, you can just begin on page 10 and do the resolution that's there. Wait 1 second.
Go to this one, though.
All right, go ahead, Councilor Schmidt.
The following paragraph needs to be substituted in the lease pertaining to the lease rates. Lessee shall pay to lessor as rent for the above described premises as follows. For the first year of the term, October 1, 2018 through September 30th, 2019, at the rate of $1 per year payable upon full execution of this lease. For the first renewal term, October 1, 2019 to September 30th, 2020, if any, at the rate $1,000 per year payable in equal monthly installments of $88 and $33/100 per month commencing October 1, 2019, and on the first day of each month thereafter through and including September 1st, 2020. And for the second final renewal term, October 1, 2020, September 30th, 2021, if any, at the rate of $2,000 per year, payable in equal monthly installments of $166 and 66/100ths dollars per month, commencing October 1, 2020, and on the first day of each month thereafter, through and including September 1, 2021. I move to adopt a resolution to correct errors in the Groton ambulance lease adopted at the October 2nd, 2018 Town Council meeting and giving Town Manager John Burt approval to execute such agreement. I so move.
And I just need you to read the back, please. The resolution on the back.
Okay. It has a resolution on the back that reads, a resolution authorizing extension of lease with Groton Ambulance. Whereas Groton Ambulance Association provides emergency medical services to the town of Groton, and whereas the town of Groton and the Groton Ambulance Association did originally enter into a lease on August 28, 1980, wherein the town leased to the association town-owned land at 217 Newtown Road, Groton, and whereas the town of Groton did approve a lease renewal on October 2nd, 2018, and whereas the town of Groton does need to make corrections to the lease, now therefore be it resolved that John Burt, town manager, may execute the revised lease of the premises at 217 Newtown Road with corrections to the Groton Ambulance Association for the purpose of providing emergency medical services for a term ending September 30th, 2019. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Schmidt and seconded by Zepari. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, wait, let me talk to Mr. Burt first.
We are good. On October 9th, we approved the language for the explanatory text. This was just amending a piece of that full resolution, so everything's fine.
Positive.
Madam Clerk, did you hear what Mr. Burt said?
Exactly.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we are adjourning the Town Council special meeting, moved by Aubrey. Seconded by Atwater. All those in favor of adjourning the special Town Council meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. We are adjourned, the special Town Council meeting is adjourned at 8:08. And we are coming out of recess, and we are going back into Committee of the Whole. So we are back in Committee of the Whole at 8:08. And we are on item 5G. This is, I believe, page 43. All right, so there's no formal action required, but filling a vacant position requires the concurrence of the Town Council. And Finance Director Landry is here with us. This is requesting to fill 3 Financial Assistant 1 positions in the Tax Office. Hello, thank you for waiting.
Yes, unfortunately, by the end of the month, I will have 3 vacancies in the tax office. 2 of the financial assistant ones are leaving the area, and 1 has taken a job in another town. And unfortunately, the deputy tax collector is out on extended medical leave, which only leaves me with the tax collector to run the office for as long as it takes to fill these positions. I did want to note that because it's going to be such a lack of staff in that office, I am proposing to reduce hours and close the office from, the office will not open until 10:30 every day until I can get these positions filled. And I also am bringing in some part-time help. But I have 3 positions at 35 hours a week, and I'm trying to fill that with part-time people. And there's just not enough staff without closing the office in the morning for them to get the work that needs to be done. So I'm asking you to approve the 3 positions in the Finance Department, in the tax office.
Councilor Zepari.
I understand the agenda says no action is required, but actually we're asked to approve the hiring of these 3 people. And I move that we accept the finance officer's comments and fill the 3 positions that she's requested filled.
So it's simply a concurrence that's required. So once everyone's had a chance to speak, then I'll call for a consensus. Councilor Aubry?
I'm just wondering, in a situation like this, might it be pertinent to bring in a company that helps with the situations? I don't know what Anderson is called now, but I know that, there are companies that can bring in a group that can help you through a bad time while you're putting time into really hiring the best people for the positions.
I think you're referring to like Manpower or Account Temps or something like that. The problem we have with those type of positions is we have a software that's unique to tax collection, which most towns use, called QDS. If you don't know how to operate that system, it's not beneficial to bring in people from the outside. I'm very fortunate that the people that are coming back in part-time are former employees that have agreed to come back. So they'll be able to come in and hit the ground running.
Okay, just a thought.
Anyone else? Councilor Franco?
Are the part-timers that are coming in to help out, are they looking to go full-time? Will they?
No, they're former employees that have actually retired. And I reached out to them and asked them if they would be willing to come in, because it's just, we were going to be in such an issue in the tax office.
And how many people are normally in your department?
There are 5 in that department.
There's 5.
And I'm down to 1.
Holy Toledo.
And as far as closing the office, I have notices that are going to go out and posted everywhere. I know it'll be an inconvenience for some people, but I really don't have any other choice.
No further discussion. Is there any objection to the finance director filling these positions? Excellent. So there's concurrence to fill the positions. So we are on next Thank you. We're on next to 5H. And this requires a resolution. So we're back to Councilor Baumgartner, a motion rather. It requires a motion. Oh, I thought he just did one. Councilor Zepari, did I skip you? I apologize.
That's quite all right.
Would you like to take this one? It is item 5H, please. I'm sure Councilor Baumgartner will defer.
It's okay. I move that we accept I move to recommend a resolution accepting the Connecticut Department of Transportation's Division of Highway Safety Comprehensive Driving Under the Influence Enforcement Program.
Wait 1 second, please. We're on 5H right now, please.
Page 44. Here.
5H, which is 2018-430 FYE 2019 contingency transfers wage adjustments.
All right. I should have let Councilor Baumgartner take it.
He's got the next one.
I move to recommend a resolution approving a one-time general contingency transfer in the amount of $57,110 to cover the wage increases for United Steelworkers finalized contract negotiations and refer the matter to the RTM.
Moved by Zepari and seconded by Baumgartner. Did you want to say anything about this?
Sure. As you know, when we were putting together the 19 budget, this is a contract that had not been settled. We had hoped that it would be settled by the end of fiscal 18, and we could do the transfers at that point. But it was not, and it was just settled in this fiscal year, and they are entitled to retro wages for fiscal 18, which is not included in this budget.
So we have $392,000 left in contingency then?
Yes, we had 450 was budgeted. This will be 57,110. And it's primarily the Public Works and Parks departments.
Thank you. Councilor Aubry.
Where does it come from?
Contingency?
Contingency.
The contingency?
Yes,
fund
it'll come
that we
from,
have?
yes, this is a contingency transfer into those departments.
Okay, and that's up a little bit right now, right? Our contingency fund?
No, it's actually, we reduced it from 18. It's $450,000 is in the 19 budget. We had put more in it last year because we had so many contracts that were not settled.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of 2018-430 FYE 2019 contingency transfers wage adjustment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, so moved unanimously. Counselor, let's see, I think that's it for Finance Director Landry. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Counselor Baumgartner, are we on 5I, 2018-400 DUI Enforcement Program Grant, please?
All right, start.
No, you can just read the motion, please.
Will do. So I'll make a motion to recommend a resolution accepting the CT Department of Transportation, CT DOT's Division of Highway Safety Comprehensive DUI Enforcement Program Grant in the anticipated amount of $58,600.
So,
Is there a second?
second.
Moved by Baumgartner, seconded by Aubrey. And Chief Fasaro is here this evening. Hello.
Good evening. I know we're all excited to watch a Red Sox game after this, so I'll be brief. The DUI grant is a little bit different this year in that it's 100% covered. In the past, we've used a 75-25 split. Can you still hear me? This year, the entire amount is covered through the DOT grant. It's a reimbursable grant, so we pay the money up front and get it from the state of Connecticut.
Are there questions for the chief? Counselor Perry, did you have anything?
You say in years past it was a 25%, 75% thing. So this is not a new program. It's a program that's been ongoing.
Correct. The funding formula is different this year. It's 100%.
And was this money put in the budget for this year? Was the funding for this program put into the budget that we have for this year already?
We had some in last year's budget, so the answer is partially, not the $58,000. It would have been a small amount to cover the 25% coverage.
Okay. All right. And will that money, that 25%, be coming back to the town general fund?
Whatever isn't spent will come back to the town, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have Counselor Parker and then Aubrey.
Didn't it begin last year? It started last year. That they started reimbursing for 100%, I believe.
To my knowledge, it was this year. I could be mistaken, though. But I know this year's 100%.
Yes, 100% this year. So I believe they changed it last year. So.
Okay.
Just to clarify that. So, but.
It's 100% reimbursable this year. So it's
doesn't
$58,000 of free money to the town to cover the DUI grant.
May I speak?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Of course.
Okay, because I went to finish and you cut me off, so I just want to report out to the rest of the group, it is not taxpayer money coming from the town's budget. It's all 100% reimbursable. Nobody has to take any money and put it in account to save for later on, which is what I was going with, to encourage the grant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Aubrey?
I was just wondering, since this is kind of like a state program, does it give you certain guidelines that you have to go by when you're doing it?
Yeah, if you look in the packet, there's a pretty extensive grant application that goes along with it. There's rules that we have to, reporting requirements that we have to provide back to the state of Connecticut, so yes.
I guess what I'm referring to is, do you have to say where you're going to have these?
If we have a spot check, we have to announce it, but if it's a roving patrol, we do not. Spot checks, by law, you have to announce. It has to go out in a public forum. We have to advertise it through newspapers and things of that nature. But if it's most of the time we'll have extra patrols on where they're, looking at targeted DUI enforcement. They go out and do that. They do not have to be announced.
Okay. I always thought it was kind of like silly. Okay, I got to go this way instead of this way to get home.
That's the law.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Heed.
I'm sure you never had to change the direction of going home.
Yeah.
So, quick question. What is the DUI limit these days? And does it equate to like one beer, half a beer, glass of wine?
0.08 is the legal limit. It depends on a variety of factors. During an arrest, we have standardized field sobriety tests that indicate that an individual is over the legal limit, which is 0.08. Height, weight, amount of alcohol, it depends. There's a lot of physiological factors that I can't give you an exact amount because it varies from individual to individual, but it's 0.08 is the blood alcohol content.
Thanks.
I just want to say, appreciate the departments, and in this case, the police department, going after grant money to try to take care of some of the needs in the community. So thank you for pursuing the grant. Councilor Baumgartner.
Good to see you, Chief.
Good to see you.
Offhand, do you know if there, obviously, I think the year hasn't ended, but offhand, if there have been any alcohol-related fatalities or injuries on the road?
Not yet this year. Let's keep it that way. We've been very proactive in our DUI enforcement. We average about 120 to 150 DUI arrests a year. In fact, this Saturday night, and I know some of you attended or are aware of the honoring of one of our officers for his efforts, and that individual officer, Officer Martinez, who was our Officer of the Year, has been getting in the neighborhood about 50 DUI arrests himself per year. So some outstanding efforts. He's not the only one. We've got some very proactive officers out there doing DUI enforcement.
One officer got 50?
Yes. Actually, we had a couple of officers that...
What bar is he sitting outside of?
Aggressive preventive patrol, making sure we keep the streets safe. Officer Martinez.
We like the proactive policing. That's why we haven't had any fatalities, because of the work that our public safety officers have been doing. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we will vote on 2018-400 DUI Enforcement Program Grant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? So moved unanimously. Where are we? Are we on? Now I'm trying to figure out who the counselor is who's reading. Counselor Parker for 2018-445 Emergency Management Performance Grant.
To recommend a resolution to accept the $19,800 grant and to authorize Town Manager John Burt to act on behalf of the Town of Groton, including executing any and all documents and to perform all acts and things deemed necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of the grant program. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Parker and seconded by Heed. Did you want to speak to this, sir?
This amount of funds is allocated by the state specifically for emergency management. It gives each of the municipalities in the state of Connecticut a certain allocation based on population. This is how the formula worked out this year, which again is money that comes back from the state of Connecticut in the form of a grant, but it's really to manage our emergency management programs.
Very good. Councilor Aubry.
What do you have a mark for? What do you plan on doing with it?
It's generally used to offset a variety of things, salaries, things of that nature. It's stuff that you can use for, typically that's what it's used for, is to offset salaries.
I'm sorry?
Salaries it's usually used for. There are guidelines, again, with this as far as what it can be used for, and it's dictated by the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. I think you should have gotten some paperwork with that as well.
I'm sure.
There's a resolution essentially saying that you grant the authority to John Burt as the town manager acting on the town's behalf to accept the funds.
Okay, I didn't know if maybe it could be used for replacement of something that we needed, or...
Sometimes it is. Sometimes we pursue grant funds through emergency management, for instance. Although not emergency management, in this case it was nuclear safety, but in front of the library and the senior center, that sign that's out there was grant funded in order to buy that, as you probably are aware.
Could you ever use it for emergency management? That's is that the 911 part, or is it everything?
No, the emergency management is disaster recovery, disaster mitigation, things of that nature. You know, if we have a storm, emergent, what we used to refer to as emergency preparedness or civil preparedness.
Okay. I apologize for the fact I didn't read more, so I got to ask the questions.
If there's no further discussion, we will vote on 2018-445 Emergency Management Performance Grant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? So moved unanimously. Councilor Franco, 5K 2018-435, request to fill 2 full-time patrol officer positions, please.
What exactly would you like me to read?
Yeah, there's no formal action required, so you got the next one then. All right. So, Mr. Burt and the chief, did you want to talk about this at all? There are 4 vacancies, I understand?
Yes, 3 actually. We've filled one of them. We have kind of give you a little bit of background. I may have explained this in the past, but hiring a police officer is a bit of an arduous process because we contract, or we're members of the Law Enforcement Council of Connecticut, which does our hiring testing along with the Human Resources Department. So it's a written test. Individuals move on after that to a physical agility, then an oral board. We're kind of at the beck and call of POST, the Police Officer Standards and Training Council. If we have a new hire that needs to go to the academy, we ask POST for seats in the academy class. There's 4 classes per year, so we ask them, along with every other police department, absent maybe 2 or 3 of the larger cities that have their own academies, we compete for positions in a 40-person class that happens 4 times a year. So we're not guaranteed to those positions, so we petition for them, we ask them for them, and they tell us if there's available slots. So we have to kind of backwards plan our process according to that. And it takes many weeks and most of the time many months to get people hired. And quite frankly, because of the requirements for selecting police officers, a lot of individuals who are interested in law enforcement careers don't eventually make it to hiring. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Either they didn't pass a physical agility, or we lose many people through a polygraph exam, which is a lie detector test, and background investigation. They're very intense, so getting someone hired is an effort in and of itself. We do have vacancies right now. They are budgeted for. They were positions authorized by the council and the RTM during the budgeting process. So I'm merely looking to fill those vacancies that we have now. Again, we're awaiting word to see how many we can get into an academy class, but in all likelihood, it would be December-ish. So I don't want to offer positions to people without having the positions in the academy and having the consent of the council in order to move forward on them.
Discussion. Councilor Aubry?
Do you have a good number that you have as potential that would like to be a policeman in Groton?
We do. We do a rolling. We do 2 different selection processes. We do rolling applications for people who are certified. That means they've been a police officer somewhere else and meet the certification process. That kind of that speeds things up for us. We can hire someone essentially off the street if they've been a police officer somewhere else. They do have to still do the background investigation, polygraph, and all that. So that we do regularly because you never know when someone's going to look for a position or move from a different department. We've benefited from that in the past where officers have come from other agencies. But we do have a list that we're working off of now. Frankly, I like to refresh it pretty regularly because we have a different pool of applicants. And there's certain, individuals that I think are reflective of our community that I like to see get into the department as well. So we do have some right now on a list, but when we exhaust that list, we do it over again.
Do we recruit at all from the base?
We have had interest from individuals that were in the service. We've actually got employees who were in the service as well. So the answer is yes, yes. In fact, we did a hiring event last month with HR and the Board of Ed where we did some recruitment there as well at Fitch High School.
Great.
So.
Thank you.
Councilor Heed?
So there's always going to be turnover. I understand that. But my question relates to, is it possible to postpone? So we're getting very close to the budget season, and I'm wondering if what's the cost of the overtime that your officers are required to do now? Is there a challenge to your current staffing? Or is there a safety issue for the officers? If you could just expand.
Sure, there's always staffing issues. And I know other members of the council have asked me, what can we do to bring overtime down? Staffing goes down, overtime goes up. They're inversely proportional. Safety, what I try to do is make sure our patrol ranks are filled. But it means that some of the other positions that we've had vacancies in, that I've been able to fill recently through promotions, but also some other positions within the department that are important to the town, community policing, traffic enforcement, specialized investigatory positions, those don't get filled. We have these positions allocated, again, through the budget process. We have the money, we have the positions right now. But where it compounds over time is if we delay hiring people and we suffer other vacancies, maybe an individual gets hurt. We have an individual now that's been on extended military leave that we replaced with overtime. There's 2 factors. Number one, certain people don't get days off. An officer may want, a holiday off, or may want to use vacation time, or have some other need to take their accrued leave. We have to deny it on occasion. And the other part is we end up pushing off the inevitable, and it compounds, because when we hire an officer, I've told the council in previous councils that it takes essentially a year for us to get an asset out of an individual we hire. Here's what I mean by that. If we hire an individual today, we've done that selection process, which I've explained is pretty arduous and pretty intensive, and has some parts to it that eliminate a lot of individuals. If somebody gets to the end of that and we say, we're hiring you today, then they're going to start the academy, and they're going to be at the academy for a 6-month period of time. We have no use of them during that time. When they get out of the academy, they're on a field training program that can average 2.5 to 4 months, roughly, about 12 to 18 weeks. So during that time, they're not an asset because they're riding with someone else. They're not on their own. They're not covering a patrol by themselves. So they're with another officer, or they're in training. When they get off of that, they can cover a patrol by themselves. Then they're an asset to us rather than a liability, meaning financially we get benefit of them after about that year mark. So by delaying these hirings, what it does is it pushes that down the road a little bit more. And if we lose individuals in the interim, which we do, departments attrit people through retirement and through a variety of other reasons, we compound the problem in the future. And again, I know the concern the council has had at times has been the overtime. Overtime happens when you have people that are out of work for extended reasons, for military leave, for injuries, illness. That's where we kind of run into this problem. And it does have an effect on morale, because if an individual wants to take time off and they can't because there's not enough staffing to allow that, and we tell them, hey, you can't have this vacation day, or you're going to have to work this holiday even though you thought you had it off. We do that quite regularly, and I try to mitigate that as much as possible. And that's a long, convoluted answer, but I hope it explains it.
Thank you.
We have Councilor Parker and then Zepari.
2, possibly 3 questions. What's the number now? What would the number bring you up to of all personnel? And 2, how many positions, and this is for the town manager actually, and Mr. Zagami, just in case I don't remember correctly, how many positions did we authorize originally when we did it for budget?
They'd still be within the allocated number.
63 and 66, to answer your question.
63 and 66, so we're down 3.
Correct.
So, okay. Well, because I'm just reading this because it says 4, that's why I just wanted to make sure.
We have a lieutenant's vacancy that was not filled this year. The budget did not afford us that, so that I'm not counting that position.
Okay.
So taking that would be 67. Take that out of the equation at 66. We're at 63 right now.
Okay.
As I indicated before, the council previously authorized some hires. We've made attempts to fill those positions. I said before that some people were unable to hire for a variety of reasons, and we have to wait till we get slots in the academy.
The other thing is, I'm just also clarifying, because when you looked at the budget book, if people downloaded the budget book, you have to remember that telecommunicators, which is the dispatchers, are also included, which would count for a different number. Hence why I'm saying something out loud.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Zepari.
I just wanted to summarize simply and simplify, and correct me if I'm wrong. You're not asking for additional funding.
Correct.
You're asking for just to complete your roster so that you have a complete complement of officers that we've already funded for. And if we delay this, there's going to be increased costs, because while you're working short of those people, you're paying overtime to fill that duty.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Am I correct?
That's correct.
May I move the question?
Not in committee of the whole. I was turning to the rules chair, but we can't move the question in committee of the whole. But I think we're just about done.
It's a concurrence, not a motion anyway.
Nothing else? Okay. Is there any objection to these vacancies being filled? Okay, we're good.
Good luck.
So we are on to now, and I don't think this one requires anything either, Councilor Franco. 2018-436, request to fill 2 full-time telecommunicators positions. So this is no formal action required again.
We're in a similar situation as Councilor Parker pointed out. This is not part of that same staffing. As you recall, formerly the Communications Center was a different function within town government. It's now consolidated. Police numbers, the numbers that I just gave you, those 66 officers that are allocated for the department in this year's budget, are separate and apart from these. We have 13 positions that were funded in this year's budget for full-time dispatchers. We currently have 11. One of our most recently a dispatcher had left because he got an employment opportunity with the fire department. So we have 2 vacancies. Much like with the police officers, there is, the asset versus liability phase of this, where we hire an individual who is a dispatcher or a telecommunicator. They work for anywhere from 4 to 8 months, and it's usually in the 8-month end. With another dispatcher, we have a training regimen that they go through. They have to meet qualifications. There's some training that is put up front, some of which is mandated by the state to become a telecommunicator. At the end of that training phase, they become a telecommunicator 3, which allows them to work independently without a training officer. So we have 2 that were budgeted in the current budget that have not yet, one which had not been filled, one which was recently vacated by another individual. Where we also have some challenges when it comes to dispatch as we've experienced vacancies over the last couple of years. Because we have a very seasoned and very experienced and competent group of dispatchers, but yet we have several that are eligible for retirement as we speak. So I want to make sure that we're bringing in new individuals now in anticipation of that. There has been, as you would notice in the budget, there are overtime dollars associated with dispatch as well, and that's the same effect. We've been short. When the police department took over oversight of dispatch, we had shortages then. We immediately went into a hiring phase. We did hire an individual, a full-time dispatcher, who's working now in her probationary period and doing quite well, I might add. But yet we didn't fill the last position, which was which would have been the 13th position, and since then we've had one individual leave. So the full complement is 13. We currently have 11. I'm looking to fill the 2 that we have budgeted that are part of the staffing of the dispatch center. We have not, in all likelihood, we would probably need to initiate a new selection process for dispatchers in order to fill these positions too. So they wouldn't be an immediate fill, but we would start the process with HR to get these positions filled.
Councilor Parker?
Did we do a part-time person?
Yes.
That part-time person, until then, because you said there's overtime costs, they've been filling in on those other 2 positions
Correct.
that are open?
Correct. The benefits with the part-time individuals as opposed to a full-time person, number one, when staffing is down, a lot of the dispatchers will work considerable amount of hours, and it gets to the point of diminishing returns where they don't want to work, they're not getting time off, and that's not good, and it's not healthy for them, and it's not good for the dispatch function. But the other benefit is for the part-time individuals, their pay rate is at a fixed pay rate. As you recall, you approved the part-time pay plan, as opposed to an individual who's working at time and a half as a full-time employee. So there is a cost savings there when we have part-time people fill in for shifts that we can plan ahead on, or where there's a vacancy because of sickness or time off. They do come in. The part-timers work at a significantly lower rate.
Councilor Heath?
No, we've discussed it before, but I've forgotten. Last year, we approved a little construction project, and you've held back the funds in the event that if I remember correctly, the radio issue, this basically becomes a contingency if we have to reprogram. But if that construction project were to be done, would there still be a need for the 13 dispatchers, or would we be able to get away with 12?
I think there would be. I mean, we need to, not only do we service all of Groton as a PSAP, as a primary station answering point, so all 911 calls come in. Those are transferred, in the case of city police, if there's a call for city police, it's transferred to them. Fire, EMS, as well as the town of North Stonington. So we've been getting by with less than the full complement, which frankly has taken its toll on some of our dispatchers. So my indication to you is, at least initially, yes, we would certainly need all 13 of them.
Mr. Byrd?
Just to mention, that would be an officer too that's in the bubble there. And that
Correct.
they can't
Correct.
fully do full dispatch work, I don't believe, because of different job descriptions. And they're monitoring the cells too, so they can't just be on a console the whole time. They can, over here, the point of, I think, the bubble, the wall being taken out so you can hear what's going on and bring other resources to bear and step in where needed, but not to fully engage at the console.
And also to make a point, the dispatch center is staffed differently during different hours of the day, whether it's, day of the week, day of the time of the day. On overnight shifts, there's for certain hours, there may only be 2 dispatchers in there. Busier shifts during the day, early morning and afternoon hours, it could be as many as 4. So we try to staff it accordingly based on that number of dispatchers that we have. So it's not always fully staffed in the sense that every position is filled. Many times it is not. Sometimes there's 3 dispatchers in the 4 positions that we have. Other times there's 2. But we do have some staffing requirements and contractual obligations we need to make sure that we're attuned to. But it just, if I may, since you brought it up, you mentioned the radio project, and since I'm here, good news, we have had the radio system installed. Mm-hmm. The electricians are there now, so we're expecting in the next month and a half that will be operational based on the arrival of some of the radios themselves. So if you want to come over, I'd be happy to give you a tour and show you all the new equipment.
Councilor Franco and then Aubrey.
Can you tell me what the job requirement, like the description? I mean, if you're coming in to apply for a position like this, what kind of background you need?
Really, I think in the past we like people that had some experience in emergency services, either as a fireman, policeman, ambulance. But really, it's they spend a lot of time behind a computer. That's what our dispatch consists of now, is computer dispatch. So people with good technical skills, they're attentive, able to do really divided attention tasks, which means you may be answering a 911 call, but also listening for a police officer or a firefighter out at a scene. Be attentive to that, to also input data into the system, and to report back to others. Answer calls for service. Have good public speaking skills, because you're interacting with members of the public on a telephone call very regularly. So, good people skills. And certainly good technical skills that someone understands, computers, but that's why it takes us a while to train a lot of people. There's really no prerequisites other than the minimum ones that are in the job announcement, which I don't have in front of me right now, but we just look for people that are good employees, hard workers, and people that can think on their feet. It is a stressful job. I think that's underestimated. Dispatchers, they really are on the front line. When something goes bad, you may not have a fireman or a police officer in your yard right away, but you're going to have that 911 operator that's answering the call, who's got to have a quick thinking, good head on their shoulders, and be able to kind of bring calm over the telephone line or the radio for people that are in distress.
Right, because I had gone online to the town website and I had looked up the job description, because there is a posting up there for one, and it had said that the medical was a requirement. So I just wanted to know how much that weighs in on it, on whether you would.
I believe
select
as long as
somebody.
they can perform the duties, it's different than from what maybe a police officer or firefighter might have, because of some of the physical things they need to do in the field. Maybe a little bit different than what a dispatcher has to do in the dispatch center. But there are some physical requirements. Again, I don't have it in front of me, but there are some minimum physical requirements.
I just meant like knowing medical, because it said it, like.
We do provide some instruction so that they can do that as well. We send them to classes.
Thanks.
Councilor Aubrey.
A little off the subject, but a little bit off the subject. How do we get compensation for the other areas that we do the 911 for? Is there some kind of a...
There's a formula that's as a PSAP, and technically we're a regional dispatch center, because we also do it for the town of North Stonington. We do get money through the E911 fund, so we get reimbursement from the state. The state tries to incentivize communities to partner with one another to do this. So the more that you partner with, or the regional dispatchers, regional dispatch centers tend to get a lot of those funds because they're incentivized.
Okay.
So to specifically answer, you, the 911 fund, there's a surcharge on phones, cell phones and landlines that is assessed annually, and that surcharge goes to fund that allocation.
Are you working with the other? They have a new thing now that, for people that are somewhat handicapped, that they can do something else to get through to
Text to 911, yep, we have that, yes, we have that capability.
Great.
It's a statewide capability too, by the way. The state 911 is a statewide system in Connecticut.
Have you been watching the new program, 911?
I have not.
Well, you gotta watch it.
He lives 911.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, Councilor Baumgartner.
You could write for them.
With these hires, down the road, if if there is a surrounding municipality that is looking to sort of outsource again their dispatch center, do you think that our current emergency operations center could accommodate that, or
the possibility exists? Yes.
And do you know if there's been any changes with, or talk about, obviously the state wants to, incentivize that more and more, but if, other surrounding municipalities support that approach as well, or?
Yeah, I don't want to speak on behalf of other municipalities, but, there's certainly, I think there's an interest statewide, and again, I think the state government has tried to incentivize it with municipalities to kind of partner together, because there's a cost savings that goes with it. There's reasons why that would be done. But, I can't think of what other municipalities in the area might be considering.
Seeing no further discussion, is there consensus to fill these vacancies?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. So we are on to now, I think this one has something to read. 5M 2018-433, Capital Reserve Appropriation for Design and Construction of Police Station UPS. And I believe this is on page 68 is where it begins. The resolution is on page 70.
This is...
Please read the resolution part.
Yes, please.
Resolution authorizing a capital reserve appropriation of $330,000 for the design and construction for the installation of uninterrupted power supply, UPS, units to the police station and refer to the RTM. I so move.
Second?
Moved by Franco and seconded by Baumgartner. I'm sure there will be discussion on this item. Mr. Schneider is going to tell us about this?
We're gonna team up on it.
Tag team? Okay. Excellent.
But the first thing is from a Public Works function. Public Works is tasked to supply power to all the town buildings and reliable power to all the town buildings. What's happening up there, what's at the police station, I'll just jump down to the issue. The existing UPS, the uninterruptible power supply systems, are antiquated and they are beyond their useful life. They need to be replaced. The company no longer supports making parts for these systems, and it's in need of replacement. Originally installed in 2000, these units were classified as dispatch equipment and were under the care of the emergency management director, previous emergency management director, who would coordinate the maintenance and component battery replacements. And you also add that into the CIP program. In June of 2015, when the town received notification that these units would no longer be supported, there was a CIP project that was put into the budget, and that budget was for $110,000. What I found out is that this amount was based on a vendor input and was for one unit, and it was a smaller unit, not the two existing units that we have up there, or any additional units that may be needed for the upcoming police radio installation. What we have now, I cannot guarantee the power to the radio system or to the police station up there. If those units go down, it's just, if you have a DVR at home, or if you have a computer at home and it's not on a UPS, the unit goes down. When the power comes back on, it will power back up again, but it goes through a whole series of checks before it comes back online again. What a UPS will do is that once the power, if the power is the power from Eversource, if that's interrupted, the generator, the main generator, is supposed to kick on. It takes about 8 to 10 seconds for that generator. It'll sense there's no power coming from the street. Generator needs time to take a look and make sure there's no power coming to the street, and then it will turn on. Between that 8 and that 10 seconds, that's when the UPSs, with their battery backup, takes over supplying power to those critical systems at the police station, which are the radio systems, the computer systems, the camera systems up there. So once that happens, the generator kicks on. The generator then is powering the plant, or is powering the police station. And then it happens in reverse. Once it senses that the street power is back on again, the generator turns off, but there is a lag, and the UPSs with the battery backup will supply power to that. What they will also do is that they will condition the power. They'll take the spikes out of the voltage. All the computer systems are very sensitive to power spikes that we may have, so it does that too. So the power coming in from the street comes through the UPSs, and it gets conditioned. Then back out into the building system. Same thing with the generator. So what we do is we have 2 units up there that we are 2 very old units that are functioning now, but we know that they are on their last legs. There was a lightning strike up at the building, and we've noted it, and here where it really tested all of our systems, and Public Works failed. Power came off. There's a lightning strike, so it tripped a fuse out at the pole, so Eversource's power wasn't coming in. The main generator was supposed to come on. It did not. So here I have a building that we're getting an alarm that the main generator is not coming on. We don't know what's happening up there. Public Works people are responding to it, and now the batteries are going down in the building. We had less than 22 minutes of battery power, and then the police station started going down with its units. What we're proposing is putting 3 units in to replace the 2 units that are there right now. They'll provide us about 44 minutes of backup each. And each of those units will function as a backup to each other. So they're all one area is not under one UPS. They're divided. So if one UPS would fail, we still have another UPS. But that gives us time for the generator to come on. What we found was in our own procedures when a generator failed, and that was because there was a battery charger that charges the battery to the generator, that fires off the generator. That had just failed. The generator had worked the previous Wednesday when we do a weekly test. The backup to the main generator failing is us pulling in a portable generator. We have another generator with a plug on the side of the building. So if the main generator fails, power fails from the street, main generator fails, gives my crews enough time, about 45 minutes, to pull in a portable generator. We have one that will power the radio side of the building. Well, part of this whole system too, so when the main generator went down, we then were going to pull on the portable generator and found out that the only person who knew what switches to pull was the emergency management director who had retired. He knew the whole system in the building. So Public Works had failed in several instances. Once we had a major piece of equipment that failed. We were maintaining it, but it failed. But my backup to the backup, we didn't have our people trained for that. So what we are requesting here, and I've talked to the chief, is to ask for supplemental appropriation. We have some existing funds that we can start the design work now. By going through the normal process that we have, if the council authorizes a supplemental appropriation, the 23rd we presented it to the committee of the whole. November 7th, the town council makes formal approval. Then they refer it to the RTM. RTM gets it on the 14th. November 14th, the moderator refers it to a committee, and then December 12th, the full RTM takes up this issue. If we move along this line, this schedule here, we are confident the project can be completed by May of 2019. There is another alternative, is to go through the regular budget process and include this portion, or this project, as a new CIP project, but that then gets it completed in November of 2019, 1 year from now. and we feel that that is too long. I don't like coming to the town council asking for supplemental appropriation. I've laid it out to the council what failures that the department had. In the beginning, we were not involved with the project. We were handed the project, we were assigned the project, and take full responsibility for it. But in order to us to provide reliable, redundant power to the police station, as the chief has mentioned before with the dispatchers, it is a PSAP, it is a regional resource, it is critical up there. We need to get these UPSs replaced as quick as possible. They will be bid. We feel that this is confident, that these numbers are a good number. I did attach the full engineering report that had several options there. We are recommending the option that has the 2 full UPSs that manage the building right now, and then that third UPS for the radio equipment. That really briefly is it. I'm willing to take questions from the council. And Chief, what do you want?
If I could, I think it's very magnanimous of Director Snyder to say it's to all their fault. Bottom line is this: it's a system that's been antiquated. We have known for a few years that it needed to be replaced. The batteries that are in it are 10 years old. They're no longer. We could replace the batteries and it would no longer be serviceable. Eventually, we'd have to spend good money after bad. But to kind of illustrate one of the points he made, everything that we have in the dispatch center now is computers. Radios are computers. If you come over and you see the computer system or the radio system we have, it's essentially a bunch of what you would look at and consider desktop computer stations that are plugged in. When we lose power, as was the case in May, when the vice president came to town earlier that morning at about 4 o'clock, the building was struck by lightning. Everything went down. 911, all communications, police, fire, everything. It was just one of those circumstances where Murphy really hit. The UPS did not kick on. The generator that services the building did not kick on. We had to go to outside resources to come and help our agencies, our public safety agencies, to be able to dispatch and answer 911 calls. We got assistance from the town of Ledyard, and really, one of the first calls I made was to get some resources in from the state of Connecticut, and they put people here, which are the same people that were partnering with the radio system. But the reason I tell you the computer part of it is, if there's not that uninterrupted power source, and things shut down, that 8 to 10 seconds, you say, well, big deal. It is a big deal, because think about when you turn off your electronic equipment now, your computer, your cable TV, your direct TV, how long it takes for that to boot up. Those are critical seconds where if someone's trying to get a 911 call into our building, or a police officer or firefighter is on the other end of a radio and needs help, that's when the crisis is going to hit, because we've had something that created this situation, whether it was a significant storm, lightning strike, catastrophic event in the town. So the reason we have this system is to guard against that. It's guard against the worst case scenario. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting at the building with the authors of this report from Fuss and O'Neill. And I specifically asked them the question, because I knew I would be coming up here with Gary to talk to you about this. I said, the council, we live in tight budget times. I'm going to be asked, what can we do? Are there lesser things that we can do? Can we replace the batteries? Can we go with less units? Can we do something else? Because I'm going to be asked that question. And quite frankly, he was very blunt about it. He says, you need to tell them you need to do this option. You need to do the 4th option. It's the most expensive option, but it is a public safety issue. And the other thing I think is important to highlight, it's important for the entirety of the community, because again, the dispatch side services the town, but it also services as the PSAP for the rest of the town, including the city and Groton Long Point. So it's critical to all of us to make sure that we maintain continuity of operations under these circumstances, and it is something that's needed. It's something that maybe should have been funded a little bit better a few years ago, but because a bad estimate was given, it didn't happen. But my fear is that if we delay this too much, it will cost more in the end. But not only that, there's going to be a gap where something else could happen again. Right now, we've held it together with baling wire and duct tape. It is serviceable, it's working, but another catastrophic event like this or some other freak circumstances would mean that we would lose all those public safety systems that are critical to the residents of Groton.
Councilor Parker?
Clarification, you said you knew about this in May, correct? We've been researching into this since May.
Correct.
Okay. You're just now getting a definitive answer now, and it's October. Do you think we should have had that a little bit earlier, since it is a critical issue? Maybe once you guys found out, we should have been looking into options then, before now. I'm just pointing it out because I'm thinking...
Fair question. But we've been looking at it the whole time. And
yeah, but this is now going to be critical, correct? I mean, we got to get something done now. We're just now hearing about the UPS. It's October.
We wanted to make sure that the recommendation that we were coming up with was based not on somebody who was in the dispatch business, dispatching, or had it. So we went to Fuss & O'Neill. We went back to the engineer who actually did the design when the building was built, when the dispatch center was built, for the redundancy. And so we went back to that person, and then we studied what needed to be done. Because we wanted to come with the solution, with the proper solution, not just we think it should be, or if we just replace those two or the battery. So it did take a little bit of time to get a sound recommendation to the council here. If the council concurs with the process of us moving forward, there is some design money left from that FY16 appropriation that we will start the design work so we can play catch up. It won't be money wasted if the RTM does not approve the supplemental program. If the council does and it goes to the RTM and they say no, I still have a design that's ready to go once the money's appropriated. So yes, it did take time, but we wanted to have the correct answer, the right answer, back to the council and the RTM for funding.
One more question. Was this the only company you went to, or was this like a bid process to have people come in?
For the engineering, no. It's a professional service, and we've used this company before. They have a master services agreement with the town. We have several engineering firms that do that, so we then take a look at the master services agreement is the standard contract language, making sure they have the insurance and the people to do the work, licensed people to do the work. We went to this group because the person did the design of the building. He didn't have to go, he could pull out the old plans, and he knew where things were. So there was savings there in time and effort instead of going out and asking for several consultants to give us a price. If this was a project that was coming into a CIP project with months ahead, we would have sought cost proposals from several engineering firms. But it was from a group of firms that we already had on board, credentials, insurance, and everything else. And we went to the person who did the work in the beginning.
Okay.
He pulled the plans right up, he understood the systems. He pointed out some things to us already that this needs to be changed. His report will be to me at the end of this next week, so then that last phase, that portable generator come in, that will never happen again where people are going, what switch to pull.
If I may too, that's a fair point, but it's also important to point out that we've known for a few years that this needed to be replaced, and the failure that we took, repairs were made, insurance companies came in to look at what equipment was destroyed as a result of the lightning strike. Unfortunately, this is not part of that covered part, but many of the radio equipment that was damaged was part of it. So since that time, an analysis has been done, and I do have to compliment Public Works. They did their due diligence, getting somebody in here who really knew what they were talking about. I brought the deputy chief along because he's been involved in the process all along. In fact, this has been his tasking to work on the UPS system. So. It is working, it's functional, it is not ideal, and yes, is there the possibility that something could go wrong? There is, but that's why we're here now. Is that fair?
Councilors Perry and then Heath, and then Franco.
Madam Mayor, I have several questions, if I may. First of all, is this based on, we have in our packet here, a report by Fuss & O'Neill, and the project that you're recommending is based on the Fuss & O'Neill report?
Correct. Yes.
Does Fuss & O'Neill sell this equipment?
No.
Okay. And the second question I have, you'd already put out a request for proposal to repair the system that you currently have. And one vendor came back with a $170,000 proposal?
That predated us. If someone else had gotten did that solicitation, had gotten a.
Is that still on the table? Is that still available?
That was a bad estimate. Is that fair enough?
Good. To answer the question, that's not on the table. It's for a smaller unit. It was for a smaller unit than what we are proposing. So that bid is no longer valid. The bids are only good for 60 or 90 days, whatever we place in our bid document. So that's just it's a bad design.
Is there any chance of reviving that?
It was insufficient.
It was insufficient, and the type of equipment, the size of the equipment, and the number of units.
Well, right now, we're doing this because the equipment we have is antiquated and can't work. And I presume that bid was to replace that equipment with something similar. Is that right?
Unfortunately, none of us can really speak to that because we weren't involved in that, but we were told, again, this is a bit of a story that I got, is that we were told it was going to cost $100,000, or a solicitation was up that it would cost about $100,000.
Okay.
That was way off the mark. When they came back to do, the council at the time allocated $100,000, and the next bid came in almost twice that.
Okay.
From what I understand, it was wholly insufficient to support the functions that we have in the building.
So you already have an allocation of $100,000 for this project?
Minus a few dollars that we spent to go out to, minus a few dollars that we spent to go out to bid. That's why, if you look at option 4, it's $383,000 from Fuss on O'Neill. I'm only requesting $330,000 using some portion of that first appropriation for the design work.
And what happened to the rest of that first appropriation?
It costs us to go out to bid. We have to advertise. It costs us to bid. There were some bid specifications that were written for a smaller unit, so we needed to throw that out.
So how much did we spend on putting it out to bid?
That and the engineering, I do believe, again, I would have to look, it's in close to $20,000, $30,000. It's not all out to bid. I mean, that's part of it, the bid specification, the writing, the engineer, and the stuff. So what we're using is that we're not asking for the full number from Fuss and O'Neill for alternative number 4. We're using some of the existing appropriation along with a new appropriation.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilor Heed, Franco, and then Granatowski.
About 5 questions.
Go ahead.
How often do we really lose power at the police station?
We lose it always at the wrong time.
Well, obviously.
I can't give you an estimate.
During a hurricane, the vice president is here.
It happens occasionally. We do have requirements as a PSAP to guard against that. We've got some regulations that we have to make sure we adhere to, and one of them is that continuity of operations as a PSAP. When people call 911, they're calling during those bad times when there may be a storm, it could be a hurricane, could be storm. We need to have, as a functioning public safety center, continuity of operations. How often does it happen? It happens every Thursday, twice. Because every Thursday morning, the lights in my office go off when the generator kicks on, and it goes through that evolution of we lose power from the line. It's a test. It's done every Thursday, so I lose it for about 15 seconds. When the power goes off, the generator kicks on. About 20 minutes later, it happens again, and that's to test the generator. Again, unfortunately, we're in the Murphy business. People call us when things go wrong. They don't call us when things are going right. So I can't give you a fair estimate on how many times it happens. Once is too many because it's the potential exists for somebody to get hurt or killed.
Right, and I'm obviously uncomfortable making a transfer of this amount. So my next questions are for the town manager. Our general fund, as I understand it, is about 14.9% right now.
Right.
And where should it be?
Well, it's a little over 15% now. It's like 15.1 or so, but
It should
it's
be like over
it's
20.
about where it should be for the fund balance. Now, this is being proposed out of the CIP, our money that was swept out. We have 1.1 million in the CIP fund, and there's no set amount on that. However, we used, for instance, this last budget, I used 500,000 of that fund balance towards to offset the 3 million or so for general fund things to reduce it to 2.5 million. So this would reduce that 1.1 million. And then, so that got us down to about 600,000, and we've done our annual sweeping of accounts, and that's got it back up to 1.1 million. So this 330 would come out of that.
All right, and let's see, basically, if we were to approve it now, is there some consideration for when we enter the budget season to look back at this and say, well, we funded this, now we want to restore the funding to that CIP account or general fund account, whichever one it's in. You know, so we're basically including this in the budget for next year, if that makes sense, without...
Well, because it's been depleted, it'll reduce, I would have, since we're right back to that 1.1 million, I'd probably look to use about another $500,000 next year. So this would reduce that by 330. So that would mean that the general fund and taxes would pick up the rest. But we're going to have to do it next year anyway, so you're going to pay it now or later. You're going to pay out of the CIP fund balance now, or you'll pay it through. But obviously, I understand that there's a point to seeing it all as a whole with all the projects next year.
That's right. That's what I was getting at. So that you know, we could go through another 2.3% increase next year, but if you back this into it, it's really 2.5. So I'm just looking for how to manage it over the long term.
You know, and to me, it'd be different if it wasn't something we were going to have to do at some point. But since we do, I lean towards doing it now. But there's not a lot to gain to wait. If we thought we might not do it next year, then that'd be a different thing. But I don't see how we're going to avoid doing this.
And I guess last question just occurred to me: are there any liability issues to consider?
Well, I think if we had a power outage and something happened, that's what's going to open us up to liability. So, and we could easily spend more than the 330,000. So.
Franco Granachowski Parker.
Well, Mr. Bird just answered my question about what we had as a balance in the capital reserve. And I just wanted to make a statement that I believe when we took the tour at the police station, you had notified all of the people that were on the tour that this was an issue that was going to need taken care of. That's it. My question was answered.
So of the four options that were there, the lowest cost one at this point is replacing the batteries for $80,000. If we did that, that would hold us until we got to budget.
Unfortunately, it would be wasted money.
That's where I was going with this. Could those batteries then be kept and used as backup for the new stuff?
No. Then I think we specifically asked that during the whole...
We asked that question specifically while we were going through this project. But the most important thing is the life safety systems are all tied to this UPS. So if you had a UPS failure, all those systems are going to fail. And as Gary had stated, back in June of 15, we were notified by the company that they don't support that UPS any longer. So if you put new batteries in it and then some of the components malfunctioned, there's no replacement. There's no ability to get that back.
They're not like a cell that you could use in another device then?
That's what we looked at initially. That's what we were, we understood that $330,000 is a lot of money. We knew that. And we knew that there was some money already appropriated. We looked at every other avenue. I think this report that you got from Fuss and O'Neill, I know we've read it. I think it's pretty comprehensive. Again, I asked that specific question of Mr. Callahan, who authored this, and he was unequivocal. He doesn't have a horse in the race at this point. I know, Councilor Zapiri, you were concerned if these guys telling us this because they're engineers. They're electrical engineers. This is what they do. They don't sell the products. My fear is that we do something less than this, it will cost more in the long run. We'll have to augment the system. As the Deputy Chief said, there's life safety systems here that are critical to operate. I highly encourage, unfortunately, the most expensive option because it does everything. I'm fearful, and I'm not speaking for Gary here, I'm sure he'll back me up on this though, but I think if we do something less than that, it's going to cost more down the road. And as you know, when you try to do things after the fact, it may cost $100,000 now, or if you want to do the better system, it's $110,000, but if you want to do the better system later on, it's double that. So I think it will service, it'll be built. It's a 15 to 20 year system. I wish I could tell you that the battery replacement would do the trick. We were hoping that would be the answer. It clearly isn't.
So the only follow-up I have is, does someone else now know how to plug in the backup generator?
I'm getting the instructions, which will be laminated and placed, and all my employees will be trained on it. I'll be getting that by this Friday. So the answer is by the end of next week. Yes, we will pull that generator up to the side of the building. We will plug it in. We'll fire off the generator. We may not turn the transfer switch because half his building may go down, but we will make sure that all the personnel, not only in building maintenance, but there'll be my backup and highway, know what to do. That was a failure. That's unacceptable.
Agreed. Parker and then Aubrey.
So Fuss and O'Neill is just the company, they're the ones that got the quotes for you?
They're an engineering firm which will design the system. They'll put a bid spec together. We'll put it out to bid.
So you guys will put it out to bid. That's where I was going with
Yes.
it.
Oh, yes.
So, but would it can sometimes come in lower depending on what equipment you get, correct?
They will spec not a sole source. There's several vendors for UPSs out there, so usually our specifications are written. It'll be based on a Motorola, but there's, or let's say paint, Sherwin-Williams, but Bayer, there's 3 or 4 other alternates that are acceptable.
And these aren't commercial off the shelf. They build to suit. So it's not something you could say, hey, I'm going to go to the Home Depot of UPSs and say, we want that one. They build it based on the design.
And this is them doing the design for you?
They're putting the bid specification, they'll put the bid specifications together, and then the firms that build these will bid them. They will then submit detailed cut sheets, detailed designs that the engineer will review. So it's not just one person out there that'll be able to bid on it. There'll be several vendors that can bid on these units.
So
that's a good price.
That covers, the specification would cover the equipment and the man hours for them to install?
Absolutely.
At the same time, which should be, if you went with option 4, $383,000 or $303,000. So it can't go any more than that because I would hate to put any more of a burden on the.
Correct. That's a funding. This estimate was put together by Mike Callan, again, the firm there, and is based on current information that he has, current work that he has done. And as you see in the option 4, page 2,
Page 75?
It's written on page 6.
6, for you.
It has the whole breakdown of the things, but there are things, and there's building modifications. We have to go for asset neutralization. We have to have ventilation now where the UPSs are, new building code. But it has a contractor's overhead and profit, so we need to put that in there. Because that's what the contractor and the engineering design and construction administration. So we've included everything in there. This is the price. Excuse me. For it. So we're confident that this number here, and what I'm asking for is minus $50,000 less than that, will do the work, will get us the project.
Okay. We have, it seems to be that we have several projects going on in the PD that's almost critical now, and it's going to be overwhelming for the public to hear everything, to say, hey, we now have the UPS system going, we now have the radio system going, we now need all this stuff, and it's starting to build a dollar amount, and looking at this, it's going to be a big chunk. Every time we do something, it's a new critical thing. So if I can ask, can we look and see what else has to be done at the PD? Because I'd rather know ahead of time. Granted, we did do a tour, but it's been so long since we did the tour that another list of updated things to hear what's going on, that we won't be sitting at this and waiting months down the road to hear, hey, we got to talk about this. Provide an update to us all and let us know what we can do and how we can figure out how we're going to do this stuff.
Sure. And I believe that it's in the works already, but I believe the council is touring some of the facilities in town. I'd welcome any council member. I'll show you firsthand. I think a picture's worth 1,000 words. showing you what the radio system, the UPS. There are things that we've held off on, as you know, that have been prior CIPs that were initiated prior to my arrival. There are things that are going to need to be done in the future too. You've seen the cell blocks and some of the other areas of the department, but these are the critical things that can't be delayed.
They will put a plan together coming
Sure.
however many years, put something for the council.
Okay, we have Ovaries of Perry, Granitoski, and Franco.
My only question is when you were looking into all of this, did you look into a possibility of rental for a period of time so that we could actually put it into the next budget?
I think because it's built to suit, you can't just rent it. They actually have to build the whole thing. There's not a rental available.
It was looked into?
But because it's built to suit, there is no such thing as renting one. That would fit our needs. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's correct.
Do you have anything else?
Okay, that was the only thing I wanted to ask about. I mean, I know there's a rental out there for everything, but...
Councilors Perry.
Except me. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to say that when that lightning struck, it was a sign.
We won't go there.
right.
Councilors Perry.
I understand the system you have is still working at this point. Every Thursday morning when you have your test, it operates and the computers don't shut down.
Well, each of the computers, the individual, sort of, because it's really a test of the generator, so it does achieve that, but it doesn't. There's no length of time. There's a very brief length of time that it operates for. The generator kicks on right after that.
And what we're talking about is 8 to 10 seconds before the generator turns on, and then there's a reboot period for the equipment, and that reboot period, what, 10 minutes? That you'd
Could be.
then-
If the point is to avoid the reboot period, because
But
then
what we're
it's-
talking about is a 10-minute period of downtime.
Could be. Could be a little bit less, a little bit more.
Then the other thing I want to understand better is, we have the new system, the new communication system that we're paying, what, $3 million for?
$807,000.
So far. And we appropriated a lot more than that, didn't we? Well, I don't remember, but anyway, we have...
That's just for the system.
Yeah, and the system is integrated with the state and with other police departments around, is that correct?
The radio part of it is, yes.
Okay, would it be possible to call forward to one of those departments and have them dispatch our people during the time that we're trying to get our computers up?
We would have to do that, but we'd still lose 911 capabilities. We'd lose all those other things. There'd be a delay. There'd be a cutover time. And we do have requirements that we need to make sure that we fulfill with that system. The Motorola part of the radio system is $807,000 plus subscribers, which is, the portables and radios. Those cost additional monies, which was allocated in the capital improvement project. What you're asking is if we can just arbitrarily transfer those calls. We have an obligation as a PSAP to handle those calls, to field them, and to move them out to others.
But when we're in a crisis such as a power outage, someone else is there to do it for us, aren't they? They can actually dispatch our police, they can dispatch our ambulances from another place receiving the messages.
They can, if we push it over. We still need, all these critical systems still have to operate, though.
And we have agreements with those other departments that they will do that for us when...
They will. But what will happen, there is going to be a gap in time before we can get those things stood up. Meaning, if we lose 911 communications, we have to set up the procedures to push those phone calls over to somewhere else. So there's a gap, there's a delay.
Do we have procedures in place for doing that now?
We do, but there's still a
And
gap.
how long a time does that take?
Several minutes.
And the radios would still be down.
Yeah, the radios, there would be a delay where our officers in the field, they could go to another part of the system. We'd have to make those arrangements. We'd have to let them know. We'd notify them that something has happened where our system is inoperable. But yeah, there is redundancy there. I hope I'm answering the question that you're looking at the answer for.
You are. You're telling me that you were looking at, if we do that, it would be a 3-minute gap. Thereabouts.
I'm not saying 3 minutes. I don't know exactly what it would be.
Okay. And the police officers, even though the central dispatch would be down for 10 minutes, they would still be able to communicate with each other via the
They
radios?
would, yes, our site would, for that, we still, don't forget, we still have the fire service as well. The fire service is in a totally different radio system. So that would go down, that would be inoperable.
And with our communication system, with other systems, other departments being able to take over and fill in for us, would they be able to communicate with our fire system?
Not currently, but we're hoping that we'd be able to get that done in the future.
And they'd be able to communicate with our ambulances to get them dispatched also?
No.
Who would be able
We would have to transfer that over somewhere else. We're trying to make those provisions in the new system to allow to do it, but our radio system is going to be at 800 megahertz. The fire departments and ambulances are not on 800 megahertz right now, so we're trying to make that connection internally so that they're able to communicate if we had to go to a different location.
Okay. Thank you.
That we are trying to do that. We can't currently do that, but we're trying to do that.
So on page 75, you have a list of recommendations in the Fuss and O'Neill report, and the final bullet on that page is talking about the UPS runtime, and it says at 50%, it'll be 4.5 hours. So what would it be at 100%? Are we assuming that's going to be cut in half, so it'll run for 2 hours? And is that amount of time, the 4.5 hours at 50%, is that a good standard to shoot for? Or should we be shooting for something that's higher to allow for growth in the future if we need to expand or anything like that? Is this going to give us enough power in order to be able to handle anything else that comes our way, so we don't have to sit here and do this again in 5 years or whatever?
I think that's the point of his fourth recommendation. It does cover that. It would allow for some growth.
So 100% is 8 hours? No, that can't make sense. 50% would give you 4 hours. So if you're running at 100%,
You cut that in half.
right, so you're down to 2 hours. And is that a good standard?
Do you want to handle this?
The goal of having that UPS in place is to act as a bridge, so you never lose continuity.
Right.
The state system, the way they operate, they have a runtime of 8 hours if they had to lose power. But they're in a different situation because they have sites all over the state of Connecticut. They may have a site up in the Litchfield Hills that they need to get to in February during a snowstorm. So they need to have that elongated period of 8 hours built in so that they can afford time for their technicians to get into a four-wheel drive vehicle, get out to that remote site, fire up their generator, because they're all remote sites.
Right.
We're fortunate in that our site is self-contained. We have our tower, we have our UPS at the PD, our generator is right out back. But you must have a redundant system or a continuity in that operation. You can't afford to have those systems go down.
No, I understand that.
Especially talking about the 911.
I understand
You can't have
that.
that minutes go
What
by
I'm-
when it's completely down.
What I'm asking is it enough of a buffer? If we're going to spend $300,000, is this enough? Because it seems like, it doesn't seem like very much to be able to get us through. It's 2 hours at 100% capacity, going to be enough time for the crews to get up here to the top of the hill, you know, during the middle of a storm and take care of everything and get everything back and functional again. You know, everything else is going to be, I assume, emergency dispatch is top priority. So then you would focus all the efforts on getting this facility back up online. And is that enough time?
It was, when we were talking about this, it was based on the time to get the main generator up. If that failed, get the portable generator in. If we're down into that portable generator in the discussions with the police, where we are in constant contact with the chief, the deputy chief, the shift commander up there, is that we are having problems. That'll give you enough time then to start transferring those radio systems and notifying people or getting people to other sites. So the answer is that's enough time. The new radios coming in don't draw that much, so you can add to them versus the old radios, which were, I don't want to say clunkers, they're on DC. These are all AC. Right. So the answer, that's a long answer. The short answer is yes. And because it took into response time and transfer time and everything else, we had that discussion.
So if it were catastrophic and this were taken out, you have enough built-in backup time to get somebody else out there, as Councilor Zepari was saying, to take over everything and forward everything for us.
This is worst-case scenario. This
Yeah.
is considering
That's the
the
point.
generator won't start, then we have to pull in another generator. Then you have that time buffer to
Right.
allow all those things to happen, so yes. And that was considered by the engineer who designed this program, or designed this report.
And I do have to say, even in the May incident that we have, Public Works is pretty quick to put people on site. They responded rapidly. We were able to restore power, which was eventually a good thing, but it did illustrate some faults that we had with the systems.
Councilor Franco?
So, just so I can clarify, the total cost is $383,000. We have 110 sitting in a CIP, right, waiting to be used?
No, that was appropriate. We had used some of those funds for the bid that came in at 170.
So you used part of it for...
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So what is the balance of that one then, the 110?
Yes. Oh, what the balance is? I'm sorry.
The balance of the 110?
The balance is, I do believe, a little over $50,000. So when you add the two up, it comes out about 383. I will verify that number again with the finance director.
Okay, in option 4 here, it says what the disadvantages. It says significant disruption. Can you explain that?
Boy, I will have to ask the engineer that. I would think, knowing I've known Mike for 30 years, I think what he would mean is that, what it would mean is that we have existing units in the building. Those will stay up and running until the new units are coming in. So the contractor's going to be in the building. He's going to be wiring. We're going to have to find a new location, which has already been set in the building. The disruption is going to be, we're going to have to install ventilation into this area. So disruption-wise, it's more building issues versus operational issues. But I will verify that.
Okay.
Councilor Zepari?
If the power fails, the computers go down. Do you have provisions for dispatching without computers? Can someone, for instance, I know you have handheld radios, and you can communicate with all your police officers with those handheld radios.
Yes, but when we say computers, it's the dispatch is all computers now. It's the radios are computers. In fact, even the handheld ones, the radios we issue our officers now, it's essentially a computer with a speaker on it.
What I'm asking is, can you go back to 1970 and actually have people use their noggins and some way of communicating with the police officers in the field locally, for instance, a handheld radio, and dispatch police? And can you use the telephone to dispatch fire and the telephone to dispatch ambulances?
Partially, but really those systems will be inoperable, meaning the radios themselves. Now with the system, as you pointed out before, because we're networked with the state and we'll be partnered with Stonington and some other agencies around here, the police department initially will be able to they'd be able to dispatch for us. The issue is the fact that we also have fire and EMS, which are on a different system. We're trying to connect the two of them so that they can be,
yeah.
We can contact them through telephone, but the UPS also services those systems as well.
The telephone system?
Powder. Yep.
Well, the telephone is powered by the telephone company line. You get,
but not.
But if it's a straight line,
Right. But they all go through the dispatch console.
Yeah. I'm just wondering.
I know what you're saying.
You should have a way to bypass that whole system and stay in communication in the event of some catastrophe.
We do. We have plans. Again, as the deputy said before, those are worst-case scenarios. We do have fallback plans, and a lot of them utilize some of our partner agencies in the area, Stonington, Ledyard. Those are the primary places that we rely on when something does happen. But really, we've got to guard against that because it's that bridge, it's that gap in between where we're going to lose calls and we're not going to respond to things where people need our help.
Wait, something, one of you said, I don't know if it was Mr. Schneider or not, when we were talking about the disruption in moving everything over, if the council decides to go ahead with this, and you mentioned, did you mention ductwork or ventilation? So is that included in the 330, or is this additional to that?
This is all included, all of the new code requirements are included in this estimate. It's just saying that when those were installed in the year 2000, those are large lead-acid batteries that were in a cage in back of the police station. Right now, current code says they're smaller batteries right now, they're more efficient, but they have to be ventilated now because just in case there'd be a battery fire. So now we got to run ventilation, which has to be tied into the emergency generator and the other areas. So we have to ventilate that area. So now we're running ductwork and a fan into that area. Being cooled, there's no problem with that. We have plenty of cooling up there. But it includes all the new code requirements. And one is the ventilation of that area because of the sealed lead acid batteries. They're sealed.
So
It's like a car battery.
So I would assume then, as Mr. Burt was saying, that if we choose to go ahead with this, any future maintenance needs, we'll be keeping this in mind when you're putting that plan together, that you're going to be tearing things up, playing with the ventilation. So when we're talking about taking that wall out, all of these things need to be looked at holistically so that we're not here doing patchwork later.
Correct. The one thing we don't want to do is do something twice, which is so we are cognizant of that. As for the maintenance of these units, usually these units come with 1 year with a maintenance warranty, 1 year maintenance warranty that's included in the price. But after that, any of the maintenance requirements, which would be a tech coming down to tweak it, to take a look at it, those would be those items are included in my maintenance budget for public works for all the buildings that have any of these types of units.
And there is some life cycle replacement that would need to be considered down the road. We mentioned the batteries before. Just like your car battery, there's a finite amount of time that those are serviceable. So years down the road, those would have to be replaced as well.
Any further discussion? Okay, so I have to find the page again. So we are on 5M, 2018-433, Capital Reserve Appropriation for Design and Construction of Police Station Uninterrupted Power Supply. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstaining. One opposed is DePerry. That passes. Councillor Heed, but I don't know that this is anything you have to read. Oh, we do. Councillor Heed, we are on 5N 2018-432, update job description or request to fill project management specialist.
The motion to recommend a resolution approving the updated job description for the project management specialist and the consent of the town council to fill the position. I so move.
Moved by Heed, seconded by Baumgartner. Chief and Deputy Chief, thank you for coming out this evening and for the information.
We won't see you again for a while, right? Well, unless you arrest me.
Did Mr. Burt or Mr. Schneider wish to speak to this?
Just real briefly, this is one of our 2 slots that we have in the department. This slot has been fully funded. It's a full FTE. It's been fully funded for this year. This slot, the person has taken another job. In fact, started her went to another company, started her own company. So this slot is open right now. What the department had done, working with the Bob Z, is take a look at our job descriptions. As slots become open, and we're looking at replacing those people, we do take a look at the job description. The current job description was approved in September of 1996. So we're recommending some minor updates to it, some word changes. It has some of the, my words, the boilerplate, which is the, the accommodations, work environment, and everything else. But it's just an updated job description to the current terms. Just real briefly, this position does all of the environmental and regulatory permitting for the department. I've listed them all there. Those are just really brief things. The bottom line, it comes out to close to about 200 individual items that must be maintained, for everything of certifying underground tanks, to include that there are insurance, that we have insurance on our underground tanks, and me certifying that yearly to the state of Connecticut. To our emergency generators and our boilers. We have some large boilers that we do have to report the number of gallons of oil that we burn for air quality. There's the solid waste regulations. The transfer station works under one, and both of our closed landfills have several regulations that we have to monitor the groundwater and the surface water in those areas. What we'll be ramping up is really the last bullet there, which is the MS4 systems. That's the stormwater systems that we have, that the state of Connecticut, along with the EPA, the feds, are looking at discharges of stormwater into the receiving waters and taking a look at what can be done to clean those up. So the main tasks for this slot is to do the environmental permitting that the department has been charged to, and that environmental permitting is for any town department. So if Parks and Recreation has an event or a location that has an item that needs to be monitored or needs to have a permit, we do that. All of our buildings have those permits. What we also do is this person has been, over the years, and we will include it with this job description, is part of the department's emergency management team. I do have several policies and procedures in place. If something does happen to the town here during a hurricane or a snowstorm, and what this person will do is become the subject matter expert for our debris management plan, which is critical for reimbursement back from FEMA. We need to document from a curbside where the brush or the debris comes from down to the street. We have to verify the load. So this person under the plan would be the one that would be charged with working that plan. Also, I have a hurricane operations plan that's updated. We also work with the state's Demis Region 4, Department of Homeland Security Emergency Management. We also work with them with some of the equipment we have up there. And what we use this person for, as I said before, is the FEMA department coordinator. This person brings all the items together into the FEMA forms that are then certified by either the emergency management director or town manager for reimbursement. The third thing that we're going to have this person do too is work a little bit more on our safety programs, working with the Human Resources Department and Bob C. People down there, is making sure that the overall town safety programs are written as such down to the job level in the department, which is the requirements. We're still not there. But we'll take a look at those written safety programs, making sure people are trained properly, that they have the right certifications for the work that they're doing, and they have the right knowledge for the work that they're doing. And to take a look at the asbestos, lead, and PCB monitoring and the other safety programs that we have. And then the last thing will be is to work with the software migration systems that we have. A lot of the things that we do report up to the state through a computer system, but our new ERP, our new town-wide software systems that will be coming in will support some of these functions. So this person is critical. We do offer guidance. Person did offer guidance to the Board of Education for their monitoring of their programs or reporting of their programs. We have assisted questions for other towns of what processes and programs we do here. We have been audited by DEEP, and I'd like to report this is a positive. We have not received an NOV from the Department of Environmental Protection, Energy and Environmental Protection for any of our programs that they monitored us for, because all the records are in place, the training's in place, and everything has been done properly. So I'm asking the council to, the consensus of the council is to authorize that this position be filled, and then I do believe it takes a form of resolution and then approving the updated job description.
Is there any discussion? Councillor Aubry and then Sapari.
Do you think you can get somebody with all these abilities for what is already in your budget?
This is correct. So this is already in the budget. It's at the GME level, whatever the GME pay grade 11. We feel we can. That we'll be getting a younger person in, probably right out of college, that wants to be in the environmental field, and then we can train them. If they have an LEP license, a licensed environmental professional, those people go for $125, $150 an hour. We're not looking for one with that type of licensing. We're looking for a person that can grow into the field, can grow into this. A lot of the programs here are set, so they're monitoring. They're not certifying anything that they need a license for. So yes, we can. We feel there's a pool of people out there.
Councillor Sapari.
I think my question is answered. But your pay grade for this person is GMEA pay grade 11, and that's the same pay grade of the person that he's replacing?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? We are down one councillor, so if we're going to vote, you guys can remind me to keep the count correctly. Anything else? Anybody want to do? No? Okay. So all those in favor of 2018-432 update job description and request to fill project management specialist, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? So moved unanimously with 8
Can we take a-
councilors. Councilor Franco is stepped out for a minute. Okay. All right, so just before we do that, just know that we still have 6 items to go, and we are at 9:45. At 10 o'clock is when we have to start getting a consensus about whether we want to move to another item or not. So right now, Councilor Sapari is requesting a 5-minute break. Okay? So we're in recess for 5 minutes, and it is 9:47.
Is Franco coming back?
I assume so.
She'll be back.
Thank you. We are back in at 9:54. Just have to record that. And we are on to 5-0. I don't think we've ever had a 5-0. Extension of 2018-219-2, extension of effective date for the Planning and Zoning Commission merger. And did you have a turn, Councilor He?
I think Leanne was last.
We're on to Councilor Aubry, so we are this one.
Okay. Motion to recommend a resolution adopting the change to ordinance number 286, designating the Planning Commission as the Planning and Zoning Commission for the town of Groton and abolishing the Zoning Commission effective July 31st, 2019. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Aubry, seconded by Smith. Any discussion?
There was some talk at one point about inviting the planning commission to come in, or the zoning commission, and talk to us about the merger. I don't know if we've made any headway on having that done, or if I missed a meeting.
Is that directed at John?
I think just in general.
Oh.
General.
I don't remember having that.
Is that something you're interested in having done?
That was something, someone had mentioned it a while back. I mean, I don't think we're going to not merge the two commissions, but I think that they wanted to tell us why they didn't want to have it done, or what their thoughts were on it.
So who did you want to invite in?
Oh, this is just postponing.
No, I don't know if anybody else had an interest. I just wanted to bring it up.
I haven't heard anything.
Yes, please.
I'm certainly not adverse to it, but I have great confidence in what John shares with us, both Johns.
So there's no one else that has the same interest that Councilor Heed does at this point? Councilor Baumgartner?
Just for the purposes of I don't want to say transparency, but there are obviously folks who have been volunteering in a volunteer capacity and want to talk or speak with the council. I don't think we should turn them away, but, so in that respect, I guess I would agree with Councilor Heed.
So we have two counselors that are interested in who, I still don't know the answer. Did you want planning, or did you want zoning, or did you want both?
Planning in particular.
Planning department. Or not planning department, I'm sorry, the planning
I'm just
commission.
asking the question.
So we have two people interested in having the planning commission come in and talk to us. Is that what you're saying? I'm just trying to clarify what they're asking for and what they're looking for. That way then I can throw it out for the rest of the council to decide if they are also interested in such things.
What exactly are they going to come talk to us about?
I'm not sure. I just remember having a conversation with someone saying that they wanted to come talk to us.
I've not heard of any planning commission members or zoning commission members, have you, John? I've not heard of them asking to come, because they had the public hearing, a few people on the zoning commission and planning commission came, and I haven't heard anything since then.
Councilor Obert, and then Perry.
What's your recommendation?
I recommend that we move forward with this item. We had a public hearing. There was no comment received at the public hearing. As John said, I know at least the chairman of the planning commission did attend the public hearing, made no comment. I've spoken to the entire zoning commission. They've all agreed that extending it out, the extra time that they would, one, serve, and two, they thought it was a good idea, so we'd have the right amount of time to get through the regulations. And we've spoken to the planning commission in the past, and we know it'll be a little bit of a bumpy transition when it happens because they'll be taking on some additional roles, but we think it's the right way to go.
Do you think there would be anything to be accomplished at this point to have them come in and talk with us, or wait a little while?
Well, I think there's two pieces to this. One, we're asking for this extension to the time period of the zoning commission, so it's actually giving us more time before the two of them merge, so that we can finish the rewrite of the zoning regulations with our existing zoning commission. If you wanted to have a conversation with the planning commission about their thoughts of taking that role on, I don't think there's anything that would stop us from doing that, but I think that and this vote are two separate actions.
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Because if we don't get this extension moving forward now, I'm not going to be able to finish the zoning regulation rewrite with our existing zoning commission.
Councilor Perry.
I was just going to make that comment. We're not voting on whether or not we're going to consolidate these two functions. We've already decided that. We're voting here as to whether or not we're going to extend the time from what we had planned before to a little bit later so that these new regulations can be written and ready for that consolidation.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor of 2018-219-2 extension of effective date for the Planning and Zoning Commission merger, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, so moved unanimously. Councilor Atwater, 2018-442 DECD Brownfield Grant, Groton Heights.
Make a motion to recommend a resolution to approve the submittal of the Brownfield Grant application for the former Groton Heights School and authorize the town manager to sign all required grant documents for such program. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Atwater and seconded by Schmidt. Any comments you'd like to make?
Very quickly, we've issued an RFP for this property. We have closed the RFP. We are beginning the interview review process for the sale deposition of Groton Heights. We've all known that there is asbestos and other items that make the site a brownfield. The cost of removing those is quite expensive. There's a state grant out there. We think it's a great opportunity to help lower the cost and contribute more to that property.
That's great. It's great news, and I'm again glad that town staff is pursuing these grants. did you have anything you want to say?
No, I'm happy that they're trying to do that.
Councilor Franco?
So I'm noticing that they're saying, you're stating that it's $250,000 for a cost to remediate the building, and this grant is for $150,000. So who's covering the variance?
Whoever develops the property. So we would do this, one of the things we often speak about is that public-private partnership. So whomever gets selected to remediate the site, the cost ranges are $250,000 plus. It could be $500,000-$600,000 or more. The possibility, the maximum amount of grants that we can ask for is up to $200,000. Because of the size of the site and some of the constraints that are there, we thought it would be best to kind of hedge our bets a little bit, ask for 150, knowing that there'll be private money that helps shore up the other side of that.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add that I received a letter from James Butler from the Council of Governments, that copy of it that he had written to the Commissioner of Department of Economic and Community Development, expressing their full support for the grant application. So we have the support of the Council of Governments behind this. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? So moved unanimously. Councilor Schmidt, 5Q, let me see. Yep, we need a resolution. So this is 2018-419, alteration of a scenic road, 1201 River Road, request for public hearing, please. On page 95.
I move to recommend a resolution to schedule a public hearing to solicit public input regarding the alteration of River Road. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Schmidt and seconded by Parker.
And just to mention, when we have the public hearing, the actual requesters will come and present to the council the information, so you get everything.
And just as a point of information, are the neighbors along the scenic road all notified that there will be a hearing?
I believe that they are. If they're not, we will tell the applicant that they need to. We've been receiving phone calls, emails from numbers of neighbors, and we've let them know that when it does move on, we'll make sure that they're notified.
Okay, because we have two items just that are the same,
Yes.
and I just want to make sure that all the neighbors are aware that this is going on so that they can come and voice their opinion.
Now, when you're referencing all the neighbors, is there, I don't know if there's a specific notification requirement. We can check that, but we'll make sure that people along the roadway are notified.
Due diligence, yes, okay.
At least for the whole length that's going to be modified. The whole length of road that will be modified, people who have abutting property to that should be advised.
So any abutting property owners to work in a minute.
And I think we also should invite them to send written comments if they prefer.
Yes.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of 2018-419, request for public hearing for 1201 River Road, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? We are after 10 o'clock, so to take the last two items, I need a consensus from all of you to move on. Is there any objection to taking the last two items? None. Seeing none. Councilor Perry, would you take, I'm sorry, Councilor Aubrey has an objection.
Well, not really an objection, but the blight ordinance, I think, is going to take a bit of time. Maybe not. Maybe I'm the only one that would make it so it takes some time. But I just think that's very important.
So why don't we take 5R, and then we can see how we are with that, and then we can discuss that one when we get there. So Councilor Perry, 2018-420, alteration of a scenic road, Sandy Hollow Road, please.
Move to recommend a resolution to schedule a public hearing to solicit public input regarding the alteration of Sandy Hollow Road.
Moved by Perry, seconded by Heath. Any discussion? Yes, Franco.
So when it comes to a scenic road, are there all kinds of special variances or rules and ordinances regarding them?
This is the ordinance. There are no direct standards. And it's, what is required is that a public hearing be held by the town council.
And that's it? Because I remember there was quite an issue on Sandy Hollow Road when they wanted to put curbs in. And they had public outcry but that's it. It's just public hearing, and we're gonna find out what the residents want, and we can go from there. There's no other rules that pertain to a scenic road.
I mean, I would recommend that prior to the public hearing, everybody read the ordinance. But other than that, you'll then hear from the applicant who's proposing to make these changes or looking for this exception, and I'm sure you'll hear from some of the abutters.
And again, I stress that we should definitely notify neighbors if they choose to live on a scenic road, then they're definitely going to be interested in any changes to that scenic road, so.
What do we normally, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What do we normally do? I mean, we're saying we should notify these people, but there's a lot of things that go on with different areas, and we don't get in touch with the neighbors. I mean, if you make a zone change, you don't even have to let the neighbors know.
For this particular type of application, is traditionally, this is the first one of these in the time I've been here. This is something that wasn't necessarily crafted up in my time. I don't know what the notification requirements are. I know it's a public hearing that has to be advertised.
Right.
We can tell the applicant that they need to notify all their abutters.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate, but I don't think we should, because I don't think it's been a practice in the past.
We would require notice and proof of it.
Yes.
I beg your pardon?
I've asked him to have the developers submit proof of notification to the neighbors.
Councilor Perry.
This is very much like a ZBA issue. And I'm not sure why the ZBA wouldn't be a more appropriate venue for this. But going back to it, the abutting property owners aren't sufficient. You have to get everybody along the stretch where the road is going to be modified. And I saw, the drawing I saw, as I interpreted, there were several houses on Sandy Hollow Road that were abutting the road change, but not abutting the property that is requesting the road change. So all of those people have to be notified. I guess we're acting in this case because it's a change in something that had been ordained in the charter. The council has to act on it rather than the ZBA. But as we're doing it, we should comply with the procedures that are pretty well established in the ZBA.
Councilor O'Brien.
I think the only thing that's established is that the person that's asking for it notifies the abutting people, but the town does not.
I agree, but in this case, it's not just the abutting people to his property that are being affected, it's people that are several houses down, because the road is being changed all the way down that far.
Mr. Byrd?
I think John understands where you're getting at, and he'll give direction to the developer to do beyond just the abutters. He'll give them the reasonable distance around.
Just remember, what you do for one, you must do for another.
No, I'm not saying he'll notify. He'll just tell the developer to do it.
But
we'll treat everyone fairly.
Okay, wait. Slow down. We can't all talk at once. Finish what you're saying.
I understand what you're
I'm
saying.
sorry.
Whatever rule we give to one applicant, we give to the other.
Exactly.
In the future, yes. Though we might want to look at this ordinance generally in the future to update it and make it more modern, more appropriate.
Councilor Franco.
Me personally, if it's not in the ordinance, I don't think you're required to notify or tell the developer that they are required to notify anybody if we're putting it out in a public notice. That's what we're doing. We're putting out a public hearing for people to come speak. I mean, that's the notification. If it's not in our ordinance, you don't want to start a precedence that you're going to have to start doing with everybody.
If the person wants to change, send a letter.
Excuse me?
I was just talking to Rita.
So my thought is we don't want to start something that we'll have to start doing with everybody unless it's in the ordinance. That's me personally.
Did you have something else to add? I'm looking at this map and I'm seeing, okay, the driveway's there, but you're looking, there's 10 houses there whose backyards are gonna be affected by this. And if I was there, I would wanna know. Because I don't think by looking at a public notice in the paper, you're gonna see that.
I put an addition on my house, I had to send registered letters to everybody.
Right, right.
On 2 streets.
But that was you, not the town.
Right.
What I'm,
Go ahead, Councilor Aubrey.
what I'm saying is, yeah, I see what you're saying, but you know, if you change something on this now, you best be prepared in the future that if you don't notify somebody like you're doing here, you're going to open up Pandora's box. You got to go by what we have for regulations now, and I believe it is that the developer notifies the budding agent people. If they decide it's all these people, then that's between them and planning. It's not ours to do. That's what I'm saying. Don't take on something that you're going to be eating later.
Councilor Heeds.
I'm in agreement with Representative Aubrey, Councilor Aubrey.
Is there any further discussion? I'm sorry, Councilor Avalon.
Just to try and clarify, I took a ride out of, by this site, and on the first illustration map or whatever, it's showing the long thing. Most of that looked to me like wetlands. And if you look carefully, what he's requesting is just the 5 houses across from the exit of Pequot Road. So it's not affecting all of those other houses down along the street. What he's really asking is, can he put driveways in where he wants to put those 5 houses? Well, at least that's, driving by, that's what it appeared to me.
The map probably shows this whole property.
Yeah, but I think most of it looks like wetlands, so you can't build on all of it.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to set a public hearing? Seeing none, all those in favor of setting the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, so moved unanimously. Okay, so now we are on 5S, and this is the blight ordinance revisions. And what we're looking for here is just to set a public hearing. So Councilor Aubrey, are you okay with us going ahead with this?
Sure. As long as I have an opportunity to ask some more questions at another time.
Okay, so then we are back to, I think, Councilor Baumgartner to read this motion, please. This is, I'm sorry, this is 2018-86-2, blight ordinance revisions, request for public hearing. Yes?
Can I ask a question before he reads it? But November 6th, are we meeting on that day?
Oh,
Can we
that's
confirm?
right. Thank you, good catch.
Yeah, it says November 6th, so I just want to.
Good find.
No, the voting is November 5th.
No, it's November
6th.
6th. Oh, it is.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
It is.
Oh, it is.
No, that was a
Okay.
typo on my part. I'll take it. Hold on.
Councilor Baumgartner, would you read it with the correct date, please?
Yes. So I'll make a motion to recommend a resolution to schedule a public hearing for November 7th, 2018 on the proposed changes to the blight ordinance. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Baumgartner and seconded by Parker. Councilor Aubrey, do you have questions?
Oh,
I thought you said you wanted to ask questions, I'm sorry.
I'll wait till then. I guess that would be appropriate when, at that time.
Okay. Yes.
Actually, could I ask you to amend that motion to just set a date for a public hearing? Because I want to make sure we have the right amount of advertising time. Because I think originally I might have had this one scheduled for a past council cow, so I just want to make sure that we have time to schedule and advertise, because this action here still needs to be approved at a council meeting. So we won't have time to get this approved at a council meeting and then do the right advertising. So if you could just have the motion be to recommend a resolution to schedule a public hearing on the proposed changes to the blight ordinance.
Okay, how about if we withdraw the motion in the second? Councilor Baumgartner, partner, are you willing to withdraw the motion in the second?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion has been withdrawn.
Since
So
we only do the public hearings at the council meetings, it would be December 4th.
Okay, so can you read it as is? I'll write it down, or Mr. Burt can write it down and give it to the counselor. So to recommend a resolution to schedule.
Motion to recommend a resolution to schedule a public hearing for December 4th, 2018 on the proposed changes to the blight ordinance. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Baumgartner, seconded by Parker. Is that the correct date?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have the date corrected. Is there any discussion on 2018-86-2?
On this?
Setting the
or-
public hearing, not on the
no.
ordinance itself. All we're doing is setting a
Yep.
public hearing.
Will be good.
Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of setting the public hearing for the blight ordinance revision, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstaining, so moved unanimously. Other business, item number 6.
Thank you.
Drive carefully.
Thank you. I have 2 other businesses, so Councilor Parker and then Councilor Franco.
All right. 2 things. Reminder that there is, unless you guys didn't sign up, there is the CFECT Thriving Community Conversations tomorrow night at the Groton Public Library from 5 to 6:30. To Betty Ann Ryder. Sorry, Betty Ann. Retirement parties on Friday night, but there is an opportunity to see her before she goes on 10/31. And 2, I went to the liaison meeting this past month, and we have been invited to the Healthy Development, a Summit on Infant, Children, and Adolescent Mental Health, Part 4, From Cradle to Career, Teaching Children to Cope, on Monday, November 5th, 2018, from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at Fitch High School. And for those who have younger kids, there is service providers and snacks that night at 5 p.m. And they ask that you register at groton.k12.ct.us, and this is hosted by Town of Groton, Children First Groton, and the City of Groton.
Councilor Franco.
I just wanted to make a note, we didn't go over calendar and communications.
We did not. We did not. And that was what I was going to bring up next. So if you'd like, we can take that up right now, or we can postpone that and deal with it at our next meeting. So what is the pleasure of the committee?
I just had a couple of announcements, probably the same as Rachel.
I mean, I can wait till next one.
Would
It's
you?
just some things I
How many
did.
would like to give their communications now? Okay, we can, so hold your communications for the next time we meet, and we can provide all of them at that point. Anyone else?
Can I just put a push in for something?
Certainly.
Okay, just 2 things. Next Monday night is another meeting of the Beautification Committee. This time we'll be at the Senior Center. And we're really looking for more people to come out and give us their ideas. And Friday night, I know it's not town business, but the Rotary is doing a comedy night at the Elks, and we need people to come. It's at 6 o'clock, and it's a lot of fun.
Friday, November 8th, 9th?
This Friday.
26. October 26, perhaps?
That's Trick or Trunk Night at Eastern Point Beach.
Yes, it is.
Yes. So when you get done with your pumpkins, come on over. Or whatever.
Anyone else have other business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Parker, seconded by Franco. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, so moved unanimously. We are adjourned at 10:20.